Joe Rogan Podcast. Check it out.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Train by day, Joe Rogan Podcast by night, all day.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for doing this. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Very nice to meet you.
It's great to meet you. I'm really excited to be here.
We've talked about you 8 or 10 times.
I know, it drives me crazy.
Does it?
I'm like, I want to talk too.
What is your impression of the way people are interpreting what happened to you?
Well, I was really frustrated when Jack and I don't know how to say her name properly, and I'm gonna muck it up. Jack and the head of safety.
Vidya? Is that how you say
Vidya?
it? Vidya. Yes. Let's tell people the story. What happened?
Okay.
You want some of this?
Yes. Okay.
brought
So
this
let
from
me.
Mexico.
This
Yeah,
is
go
my
ahead.
favorite booze, and not just my favorite Mexican booze. My all-time favorite booze, and and nobody likes it except for me. So even in Sayulita, which is this is where I'm living now. I just outed myself.
We could edit it out if you want.
No, that's cool. That's cool. Because I also that's cool. Leave it in. Okay, but this is like a sipping drink, so be very like reserved. Cheers.
A sipping drink.
Yeah, like don't take a big gulp.
Yo. This is Mexican moonshine.
Yeah, it's Mexican moonshine.
Wow.
So it's from the agave plant, which is like the same.
You like it hard, lady. This is hard stuff.
I really like it, and I don't know what's wrong with me, honestly, because it's not like I love hard alcohol. Makes you feel warm inside, though, right?
Yeah, for sure.
If that's your reaction, I can only imagine what it is like.
It's
and I don't wanna
40%
find out.
alcohol.
I'm
You should
good. I'm
try it.
Yeah, what is that?
upset.
80 proof? That's 80 proof, right? Isn't it like double?
Yeah, but
the percent
all right.
isn't. Is that how it works?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's what that moonshine was we
That's
used
me.
to drink, I think.
Oh,
It is.
yeah,
It's literally
it's
moonshine. Like
you want to try
is.
it?
You should try it.
I mean,
Let's
I
try
just
it.
want to see your reaction.
You got a cup?
I love forcing people to try it and then
Yeah,
seeing
you
what
need a
they
little
do.
bit of this. Okay.
Calm down.
Oh, you got to cheers, Jamie. We all cheers.
Cheers. You're welcome. That was a joke.
holy.
Yeah, right?
It smells like you're going to clean something with it.
Yeah. Something bad like blood.
This is how we stay healthy in Mexico.
Oh, okay.
We just
I
like
guess it
clean
works.
everything
I
out.
can't even drink it. It's too, like, I just took a sniff as I was going to go up and, like,
It's
whoa,
rough.
It's like 3 times a tequila shot, it feels like, in one.
Yeah, it's exactly what it feels. What is it
I
called?
believe you.
I would say it's an acquired taste, but I loved it immediately. So
Estancia?
okay, so it's specific to the region. So I live in Sayulita because I ran away from China. I mean, Canada. But so it's like an hour away from Puerto Vallarta, and it's in the state of Nayarit. So this booze is specific to that state. And it's not like I don't love like chugging vodka or gin or anything like that. Like I do like scotch and whiskey and whatever. But
Right.
for whatever reason, I really love this. And everyone else thinks I'm like a psychopath. Because I'll
Well,
be
maybe-
like, try it, it's the best. And they're like, why are you feeding me gasoline? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Maybe it represents like change to you, you know, because it's like you're in this new place and you got fed up with these draconian Vancouver or Canadian restrictions, and
Yeah.
and you're just like
And I was like, I'm going to go get wasted in Mexico
Yeah.
and live my life. I actually
live your life.
genuinely I find it like sweet.
this stuff. Sweet. Yeah, this is not.
Did you also
it's
find
not
it
that
sweet?
It's rugged. I
you
took a
ever had
couple of
candy?
sips and I'm lit.
My eyes are
I
watering.
know, I have to
and
be
I didn't
careful
even
because
drink
I'll
it.
get drunk.
You didn't drink it at all?
I can't. It's like, I can't. I will vomit
Pussy.
probably. I'll just spit it out, so I don't want to do it. I know what's gonna happen.
So you let's go to your story.
Okay,
So
okay,
like
okay.
explain to everybody what happened with you.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm not sure how far back you want me to start,
Let's how you getting kicked off Twitter. Let's
okay. So, I mean, I was one of the only people in Canada who was talking about gender identity critically. I'm not saying that to big myself up. It was very annoying because I obviously was like targeted. So there was Jordan Peterson who spoke out, and then there was me, and then there was like a couple other people, and I was pretty vocal about it. I first started talking about it back in like 2016, 2017, because the Liberal government was pushing through Bill C-16, which was our gender identity legislation. So they were trying to, and succeeded in, because the bill passed, incorporate gender identity into the Human Rights Code and the Criminal Code. And I went and testified against that bill to say, like, this bill shouldn't pass. It'll have a negative impact on women's rights, which of course it did.
For people who don't know what it means, could you explain what it means? Because some folks aren't hip to the argument.
Right. Sorry, I should.
And also that Canada, we should explain, Canada does not have a First Amendment. So you don't have freedom of speech over there. You have the Human Rights Council, right? So, and then if laws violate, rather some of your speech violates the laws that they put in place, you can literally be arrested.
Yeah, you go through a human rights tribunal. And so, I mean, the law didn't actually, it was very vague. Like, it didn't specifically say, for example, if you misgender somebody, that's a hate crime or hate speech or something like that. All it did was to say that gender identity and gender expression essentially needed to be protected under the law, just like whatever race, other sort of marginalized identities or whatever. And what we thought would happen, which did happen, is that it would sort of direct policy. And it would mean that, anybody could use any bathroom or change room. It would mean that men would have to be allowed in transition houses and women's shelters if they identified as women. It would mean that men could be transferred to female prisons if they identified as women. Essentially, like, to me, the concept of gender identity nullifies sex. Like, you can't have both. You can't say either you are a woman and you're a woman because you're female, or you identify as a woman. You can't do both. And then anybody, of course, can identify as a woman. I'm sort of going about this a long way. But, I was just worried about the implications. I testified at the Senate. Jordan Peterson testified. Are you okay?
Yeah, just take another sip.
And so essentially, like, I was the loudest feminist voice in Canada, by far. And I was tweeting about these issues. I was asking questions about gender identity. I was sort of saying, like, what does this mean? Like, I said, one of the tweets that my account was locked down for was, what's the difference between a man and a trans woman? And I wasn't saying that to try to be rude.
Right.
I was saying, like, somebody please explain what happens to a man between him being a man and then him being a trans woman. Do you know what I mean? Like, if he hasn't had any surgeries or anything like that, not that I think that a surgery can change your sex, but, like, what is it? So now, yesterday he was a man, today he identifies as a woman or a trans woman. What's happened here? Like, what does this mean? Like, it was just so nonsensical. It's just a belief system,
Well,
right?
it can get even worse, right? But you can decide to go back and forth throughout the day.
Yeah, I mean,
they've allowed that. This is also accepted. Like, you can be gender fluid, and you can be gender fluid depending upon your mood multiple times a day.
Right. And that's what the concept of gender identity does. It's just an identity. It's just something you say.
Right.
Like, it could be something you feel, but it's just a proclamation. There's no material reality involved. There's nothing concrete. There's nothing you can point to. Essentially, like, it's akin to a religion as far as I'm concerned. It's faith-based, right? So, I feel like these laws are, in a way, sort of enforcing religion on people. Like, it's like they're enforcing this, like, faith-based...
Woke religion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways.
I mean, you could call it progressive, but it's, of course, not progressive. It's just weird and nonsensical and has a terrible impact on women. But, so one of the tweets that I was locked down for was that one. What's the difference between a man and a trans woman?
Just a question.
Yeah.
And so they suspended you for that.
So they locked down my account, and they're like, you have to delete this tweet if you want your account back. I appealed it. It was every time I've appealed anything, it's just been totally ignored. They don't explain why. They never tell me what rules I break either.
Right.
Or did break, right? Like, they never said, they say hateful conduct, but they don't say, oh, it's this specific rule. Like, you're not allowed to misgender or dead name or whatever it would
Right.
be. I mean, I don't even know what rule that would break, saying, like, what's the difference between a man and a trans woman? The other tweet, of course, was men aren't women, which
Yeah.
wasn't targeted at anybody. I wasn't saying, you're not a woman. It was, like, part of a thread. It was part of a conversation that was back and forth. And I was like, but men aren't women. That was one of them that got me locked down again. And
Which
then,
is crazy.
well, yeah, like,
We're literally like denying biology.
I mean, so what I think, I don't know, because again, no one's really explained anything to me. No one from Twitter has communicated with me. No one said what I did wrong. So I'm just guessing.
Can I tell you what they said?
Yeah.
They said that you were told to delete the tweet, but you took a screenshot of it and you deleted it, but then reposted the screenshot.
I did do that. I didn't know that I wasn't allowed to do that when I did that. So I wasn't trying to be a dick. Like, I wasn't trying to be like, fuck you. I was so mad. I was
That
like,
was
are you
their-
fucking serious? Like, I got banned for saying, like, men
Yeah.
aren't women, for asking these really basic questions.
That was their
like,
justification to me as to why they banned you for the rest of your life.
well, fair,
which is
fair.
fucking bananas.
Yeah.
There's the example that I bring up when I talk about this idea that you can just ban people for saying things that are factually correct, maybe politically insensitive, dependent upon the current climate, but factually correct, biologically correct, scientifically correct. Maybe you might say that it's not kind, but what is wrong with being? Are we really deciding that there's certain rules that we want to apply in regards to progressive thinking that bypass or supersede biology? Is that what we're doing? Because when you say a man, if you say a man is never a woman, that's what you said?
Men aren't women.
Men aren't women.
Men aren't women. Like,
That's a fact.
Yeah.
Men are not women. Now, I believe in trans women. I think there are people that have gender dysphoria, and I think there are people that are happier if they identify as a woman, dress as a woman, are treated like a woman, or use a woman's name and people describe them as a woman. It's obviously real, right? They obviously exist.
I mean, sure. Like, I could buy that there's such a thing as gender dysphoria. So you have some kind of like mental condition or mental illness. I'm not trying to be mean. I swear to God. Like,
Right.
people get like triggered if you say like a mental illness, but I'm like, you literally think you're something that you're not. Like, you literally believe you're a male. You actually believe you're a woman. That's a form of mental illness. Fine. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. And I don't care. If you want to dress in women's clothes, if you want to wear makeup, if you want to get cosmetic surgeries, if you want to change your name, go for it. Like, do whatever makes you feel better. That's fine. But I'm not going to lie to comfort you or whomever else. So I don't even agree that, like, gender dysphoria means there's such a thing as a trans woman. Like, to me, I'm still like, this concept doesn't make any sense. What's a trans woman? Like, what does it mean? Do you have to be on hormones? Do you have to have a bunch of surgeries? Do you have to have like a neo-vagina?
It's weird because it's very strict that you must accept that people are trans women. But then, like, what defines a trans woman is completely open to interpretation. It's the person who decides whatever identity they identify with, male, female, whatever it is, it's up to them. It's up to them whether they have surgery. It's up to them whether they take hormones. It's up to them whatever. You can do absolutely nothing. You could have a full beard and say you're a woman with a penis, functional testicles, no problem at all. And you could say you're a woman and everyone has to agree.
Speaking of which, the final tweet that I was actually banned for. So they locked me down for those two things, right? And then the final straw for them was when I said, yeah, it's him, in reference to Jessica Yaniv, who was once Jonathan. If you recall, he was the man in Vancouver who was going around to local estheticians and asking them to give him a Brazilian bikini wax.
Yeah.
And he is fully a man. I mean...
Fully a man, intact testicles, intact penis.
Yeah, everything. I mean...
Beard. Yeah.
And also a crazy person.
A crazy
and a
person.
major fucking creep. Like, and he is messaging these women on Facebook. I think sometimes under like a fake photo and name. So maybe with like a woman's photo and woman's name that's not him. And then they would realize that he was a man. I guess maybe if they talked to him on the phone or something like that, and they'd be like, no, sorry, like we don't offer this service to men. And he would accuse them of transphobia and essentially try to extort money out of them. And when that didn't work, I guess he decided he wanted to, I mean, again, he's a crazy person, so we can't take this as representative of very much other than the fact that he's like a grifter and a crazy person. But, you know, to take them all to the Human Rights Tribunal, to say he's being discriminated against. But this is exactly the perfect example of what happens if you just say anybody's a woman and you just have to accept it. He has a penis, he has balls, he obviously looks like a man. At that time, he was still using his male name in various places, like on Facebook, some other places. I think on Twitter at that time he was maybe using both names. But there was nothing to show me that he was a woman. So I said, yeah, it's him. I figured out that it was him. And then I was permanently banned. Yeah, and that was in November. And that was it. I appealed. They were like, nope, sorry, hateful conduct. Again, didn't tell me what rule I broke. 20 minutes after I was banned on Friday night. I was at the bar. I was like, what the fuck? I'm trying to have fun. 20 minutes after I was banned, Pink News, which is like a LGBT queer news site, they posted an article saying, Twitter has a new rule against misgendering and dead naming. And I was like, oh, this is a really funny coincidence that this went out 20 minutes after I was banned for some rule that they didn't specify, but I can only assume was misgendering.
Yeah.
Misgendering a man who's a predator and who was still going by his male name in various places on the internet.
Whoops.
So, I mean, he should have been banned, too, for misgendering himself.
Good point.
Thank you.
It's just so weird because it's the one area that there's no room for interpretation. There's no room for debate or nuance. It's just like you cannot misgender, you cannot dead name, you cannot like.
And you're cruel and horrible if you do.
Yeah, they're cruel and horrible to you.
Well, yeah. I mean, the things that people aren't banned for on Twitter. I mean, I have been like subject to countless death threats. Like, you should die. You get the wall. You should go to the gulag.
Yeah.
Like, people show, you know, like people say horrible things to me online. I honestly don't care. Like, I'm like, it's the internet. People say horrible things. I'm not going to crumble or feel hurt or offended because somebody says some bullshit to me on Twitter. But you can't even say he to somebody who's declared themselves a woman, or you're essentially guilty of hate speech.
But they can call you stupid bitch.
And worse.
Yeah, and
believe
worse.
it or not.
What's worse?
Like, cunt? I don't know.
Oh, there you go.
Kill yourself, you turf cunt. I've gotten that one.
Turf is my favorite. Trans exclusionary radical feminist.
Yeah.
Which, there's so many of those things that people love those little acronyms too, because it like makes them feel like they're a part of like some little group that knows these things and other people don't know these things. And
yeah, and that acronym doesn't even make sense because it's applied. Like I'm not a radical feminist. I've never identified as a radical feminist. I don't have anything against radical feminists per se.
What is a radical feminist versus a regular feminist?
I mean, technically, the word radical is meant in this context to get at the root. So the difference, radical feminists would say the difference between radical feminism and like liberal feminism would be that they want to upend the whole system of patriarchy rather than just changing some of the surface things like legislation and things like that. They want there to be a revolution.
Burn it all down.
Yeah.
They're like the Antifa of feminists.
I mean, I don't think most of them are violent, but some of them are probably violent, where some of them would want a violent revolution to overthrow the patriarchy.
Even when Antifa's violent, they're violent like, you know, little small doughy people.
You just think that because you know that you could beat them up, but I don't think that when they're...
You think they're violent?
Like, yes.
Yeah. No, I think they're violent too.
I think they're quite scary. And again, a lot of them seem really unstable. Like they've shown up at my events before to protest, and they're quite threatening. And you know, I kind of do find them scary because I find them unhinged.
Yeah.
And they obviously have perpetrated violence. Like Antifa was responsible for a whole bunch of violence during all the BLM stuff in the summer. And I, I'm not as strong as you are because I'm female. I also don't work out as much as you. But, like if a scrawny, like Antifa guy wanted to beat me up, he probably could.
Right. Yeah, it's there's a weird like misfits revenge aspect to what they're doing.
Yes.
Because they're all misfits. They're all like either like really fat or really scrawny and really fucked up, and they're wearing masks and screaming nonsensical shit. And loving the fact that they found others like them and that they're all willing to participate in this anarchy and trying to burn it all down. And because of their cute little name, anti-fascist, like how could you disagree with them? You're not a
Why
fascist,
do you
are
love fascism?
Yeah. it's like Antifa is anti-fascist. And I've seen actually CNN buy into that. Like, no, they're misfits that are trying to burn down Seattle courthouses. Like, these are not anti-fascists. In fact, if you follow the definition of fascism, they're literally trying to enforce their ideals upon other people.
Right. I mean,
force.
this is the same thing. People accuse me of bigotry. They accuse all sorts of people of bigotry because they have, approved progressive opinions.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, they're the most intolerant people ever. And I'm like, no, actually, like, if you just Google the definition of the word bigot, what you're doing is literally bigotry. You're intolerant of different opinions.
And lack of compassion. That's a big aspect of a lot of this stuff. It's like, I always used to think of progressive people and people with progressive ideas as being compassionate people. And that's the reason why they had these progressive ideas, whether it's about welfare or whether it's about civil rights or equal rights, whatever it is. I thought it was like compassionate, kind people that wanted other people to have better opportunities and do better. But when you realize that it's people who have decided upon a tribe and they've subscribed to a predetermined set of opinions, and then they use that to be a fucking douchebag and attack other people. That's a lot of what's going on with the right and the left, with both sides.
I mean, it's interesting because what they're doing is they're seeking power. Like, I totally think you're right. I think these are like ugly loser misfits who were unpopular in high school and are really fucking pissed off and want to get their revenge, and so they're using politics to do it.
Yes.
But, I was a leftist my entire life. I identified, when I was a teenager, I think I identified as like a Marxist. And then as a socialist, only recently, like within the past couple of years, have I been like, I don't think this is so great. Like, first of all, I don't want anything to do with these people. But second of all, like, I don't know if capitalism is like the worst thing in the world. But I subscribed to these beliefs because I thought we were the nice people. I thought we were the people who cared about people's well-being and happiness, about obviously equality and justice. And I never even knew any right-wing people my whole life. I grew up in Vancouver, which is a very progressive place. My parents were super progressive. I grew up atheist. Like, I didn't know religious people. I didn't know right-wing people. I almost really never even thought about them that much, but I just had decided, like, so I understand these people because I used to be like that. Like, I just thought that anybody that didn't see things my way were stupid, were assholes, or were greedy. Like, you just don't care about helping out poor people.
Right.
You just care about yourself. And, obviously, over the past few years, I've seen the light. And, the left claims to be anti-hierarchy, right? Which is stupid. Like, hierarchies are natural. You can't be anti-hierarchy. That's not how the world works. It's not how nature works. But they claim to be opposed to power, essentially. And meanwhile, all that they're doing is trying to hold power over everybody else and force everybody else to I don't even know if they care that people believe what they're saying. They just want them to say it. They just want them to repeat the mantras like they're in a cult.
Right. There's a big cult-like aspect to this.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a strange time because through social media, people get to find other people that agree with them, and they form these little attack groups. They form these little echo chambers, and they reinforce their opinions, and they use that to target people that they find that disagree with them, or they find that have opposing viewpoints. And the way they do it is really nasty. It's really nasty and really shitty, and it's not compassionate at all. It's not in line with anything that I ever thought of as being progressive or being open-minded or liberal. It's not like that. It's like they're using their ideological differences they have with other people as an excuse to be a shitty person.
And they've been doing this to me forever. Like, this was a more famous moment, but when I was writing for this like Canadian left-wing progressive news site back in 2015, I was an editor there too, actually. These Toronto progressives started a petition to have me fired, and accused me of all sorts of things. They accused me of being whorephobic, afraid of prostitutes.
You're a whorophobic?
I'm not just a transphobe. I'm also a whorophobe.
I never heard of that one before.
Yeah, this has been going on for a while.
You're a whorophobe?
I'm not a whorophobe, but so
how did you get labeled
there
a whorophobe?
is some context for this. Because I'm scared of prostitutes. I'm joking. I don't have an irrational fear of prostitutes. So most of my work before I started writing about gender identity, I was writing about, I've run a feminist website for 10 years now. I would write mostly about violence against women, domestic abuse, but I did a lot of writing around pornography and prostitution. And, I'm opposed to the porn industry. I personally don't like porn, but I think the porn industry is pretty disgusting and exploitative and unethical. I think it's obviously incredibly misogynistic. It's racist. I think porn, I know you didn't ask me about this, but too bad. I think porn's bad for men. I think it's bad for relationships, for the most part. In any case, I did a lot of writing around pornography, about prostitution. I advocate for a model that's called the Nordic model, which criminalizes essentially the exploiters. So it criminalizes pimps, johns, brothel owners, traffickers, and decriminalizes the women. So it sees women as essentially victims of prostitution for the most part. Of course, I'm aware that some women choose it, and tries to punish the people who take advantage of vulnerable women, essentially. And this is why I was labeled a whorephobe. And this is what the left was really angry at me about for the most part. But they also, of course, accused me of being a white supremacist and a transphobe and everything else because they like to just pile everything.
I was talking to my friend Ari about this, and he was saying that he knows people in New York specifically where girls have men that they have sex with for money. They've become friends with them, and they have these little relationship deals with them where they'll meet them, and then they'll have, maybe these guys have other relationships, or maybe these guys are really busy and they don't want a relationship for whatever reason. They just want to pay for sex and have it a clean transaction, and these women will do it with several different guys, and that is how they get by. Mm-hmm. And they like it. They don't have pimps. They don't have prostitutes. And this sounds very utopian, right? It sounds very best case scenario for the girl, best case scenario for the guy. We're painting this with rose-colored glasses, right? Everybody loves it. It's great. There's no icky side effects, and there's no misogyny, and there's no right.
Yeah.
In that scenario, are you okay with that?
So okay
or
is not, I'm not going to tell a woman not to do that.
Right.
If that's what she wants to do. That's her own prerogative. If it genuinely makes her happy, then go for it. If
it's better than working at Wendy's.
Well, and it is better than working at Wendy's financially, probably. I think that that relationship and that transaction is totally unhealthy and inhumane, and I think that it obviously treats sex as something that is separate from the human. And I'm not saying that
separate from the human.
So you're having sex with somebody, but you're not engaging in a relationship with them. You're just using their body, essentially, which I think is weird because we're more than just bodies. We're not like, our brains are, it's all connected. We have emotions, we have desires, we have feelings.
Yeah.
And I think if you're having sex with somebody, you sort of need to be accountable to them in some way and be considering that they have feelings and desires and needs of their own. I don't think that it's healthy for sex to be treated as just a physical thing. And I'm not saying like, sex can't just be fun and just a physical thing. Like, I've had lots of casual sex in my life.
How dare
Everybody.
you? How dare you?
Hundreds and thousands of people. But I don't think it has to be like this romantic exchange every time. It's not like you have to be married. Like, you have to be like staring into each other's eyes and like, I love you, I love you, I love you. But I think that it's a really unhealthy thing for society to normalize sex as being something transactional. And I think these women probably are going to have problems down the line. Like, it's like, yeah, right now this might be fine. Same thing with women who do porn are like, oh, yeah, this is fine, great. And it's like, okay, talk to me in 10 years and tell me how you feel when you reflect back. Like, the decisions that we make, we can make all sorts of bad decisions when we're 20. And this can be applicable to probably casual sex, too. But I think that there are kind of mental and emotional repercussions from engaging in those kinds of relationships that people pretend don't exist. I don't think that it could make you feel really good about yourself when a man is like paying for access to your body and not considering you as a human and how you feel and what you actually want. And you're having sex that you don't enjoy. Why would you want to have sex that you don't enjoy?
But are they mutually exclusive? How do you know they don't enjoy it? What if you do have sex
Why
with
would they be
people-
getting paid if they were into it?
Because
Like,
they
if I
have an
wanted to have
arrangement.
sex with somebody, I wouldn't be like, okay, well, give me some money. I'd want to have sex with them. Like,
Well, you're not a hoe.
thank you. That's true.
I mean, I think we're narrowly defining these exchanges, and I'm not in support of prostitution. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate.
No,
and be
I
open-minded
appreciate
here.
it. And to be honest, like, I'm totally changing the subject again. I'm sorry, I'm very bad at staying on track. But like, I started to question feminism and the work that I was doing because I started to feel like there were questions that I couldn't answer and I wasn't being challenged enough. So I appreciate you challenging me on this stuff, but I've sort of started to move away from feminism a bit in the past few years, partly because I just felt like I was repeating myself over and over and over again and like preaching to the choir, and none of these people were asking me any questions. And I was like, if I was having an argument with somebody who like didn't believe in patriarchy, they were like, what's a patriarchy? I was like, would I be able to answer that question? I don't actually think I can. So maybe I should stop saying this word over and over and over again.
It's a word that sort of it's supposed to put the brakes on any argument. Like, it's one of those words like because of the patriarchy.
Yeah.
Like,
You're
I had an
oh, because of the patriarchy.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. Like,
it's one of those things where, like, if you ask someone to define, like, what exactly do you mean by that?
yeah.
Like, things can get real dicey.
And I couldn't. And I can't. And so I've stopped using that word.
Well, the idea is that, like, men are controlling everything, right? Which is very disempowering for women, especially women that are very successful. It's like, how did they get there? Did they get there because men let them? Like, or did they get there because there are certain aspects of society that are a meritocracy?
And that should be a meritocracy. Like, this
Yeah.
is what I was saying about hierarchy. Like, it's like there are some people who are better at things than other people. There are some people who are better suited to be leaders. It's not an equal playing field. And
It's
to
also
pretend
not
that it
equal in
is.
the amount of effort that people put into things.
Totally.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to sit around in the house on your computer playing, I was about to say video games because I'm 41 years old. I was like, I don't think they're called video games anymore.
They are.
Are they?
What are they
Okay.
called?
I don't know. I feel like there's another. Well, I obviously don't know.
I think they're video games. They're just called video games.
No,
right?
isn't it
Yeah.
like? Okay.
What else would you call them? They're video games.
Okay, great.
Even like the brand new ones that come out
so
today.
I've just outed my age for no good reason. But like, if you want to like sit around in your house and be a loser, then you can go do that. But you don't deserve to have the same amount of money or prestige or power or whatever it is as somebody else. Like, it shouldn't all be equal. I think that it should be more equal. Like, I really don't think that people should be in poverty or destitute or be homeless.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't agree with this delusion that everybody is capable of the same things, has the same skills, and they do that in feminism a lot.
Yeah.
They sort of pretend like everyone should have an equal say, and it's a really big problem within the movement. I'm getting sort of like meta here a bit, but feminism can be very like pro-collective and advocates, like collective decision making and things like that, which is crazy because if you're working in a collective and some women are 50 or 60 years old, they've been doing this work for a really long time. If you're 50 or 60 years old, you probably know in general a lot more about life and your work than a 20-year-old does. And yet within a collective, everybody has an equal say. So, the 20-year-old who just joined your collective has just as much to say, and it's equally as legitimate as what this 60-year-old, like, it's disrespectful. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if this
No.
is like another, like, I have all these problems with feminism that I've sort of been trying to like address and articulate of late, and I've gotten pretty attacked over it because people are used to me saying a certain thing, and I've stopped saying those things and started asking questions and challenging things, and people don't like it when you do that.
Yeah. Well, specifically of those ideals that they would like you to subscribe to very rigidly define how they look at the world. Like,
Exactly.
and then if you step out, you were an ally, air quotes, and then all of a sudden you step out of the orthodoxy and you're starting to say, well, maybe this is bullshit because maybe young people are filled with hubris and they, maybe one of the reasons why they're into Marxism is because they haven't accumulated any wealth yet. And they would like everybody to have no wealth because they don't have any wealth. And then as you see, as they gain wealth, which is one of the more slippery things about people as they get older, people that used to be Marxists and then they start like selling books and start doing well. And then they're like, I'm not really into this anymore. Like, I kind of like to keep this money. Well, that fucking lady from Black Lives Matter that, was a trained Marxist and turns out she's got a multi-millionaire real estate portfolio.
Yeah.
And rental property and like... Okay.
I mean,
like, what is Marxism to you?
Well, and that's fine, but just don't be a liar.
Right.
Like, you be rich, have a bunch of properties,
Right.
have a bunch of money, but don't be a liar. Like, don't advocate this thing that is directly opposed to the life that you're living. I mean, that's why I was a Marxist. I was like, I don't have any money. Fuck these people with money. Like, how come my friends have houses and cars and I don't have anything? I'm a Marxist. And then I sort of started to make more money. It's not like I make tons of money right now, but like I'm okay. And I'm like, yeah, I want to make more money.
Well, it's very rewarding when your effort gets paid off by, something very tangible like financial success. And the idea that we're not all in it for some sort of reinforcement, whether it's monetary reinforcement, societal reinforcement, when you're doing something and you're putting out work, you're doing it for incentives. You're not just doing it to just survive. What am I, a fucking animal? I only need enough meat to eat, to survive and enough water to drink so I can stay hydrated. And who gets to decide that? Like, so if we pass that and you can accumulate more things, you could buy nice clothes, you could buy a TV, you could get a computer. Like, well, who's to decide where that ends? And how do you regulate this? And who gets to regulate it? And if you look at the loudest voices, they're usually the laziest fucks. The laziest or the youngest or the ones who just haven't been successful at life. This idea, and Jordan Peterson talks about this all the time, it's an infuriating idea of an equality of outcome. Because there's no way that's ever going to work. But some people want that. They want an equality of outcome in terms of like financial success or life success. But there's not an equality of effort. And this is the whole reason why we have innovation and why our society moves forth and why people put in a lot of effort and make extraordinary leaps and gains in their life is because there's incentives. That's why they do it.
Right.
It's the good aspect of capitalism.
Yeah, and I mean, the idea that like you shouldn't have to work hard. I mean, working hard to achieve something like financial success is great. Because yeah, why would you do all this work for nothing? Just out of
Right.
the good of your heart. Like most people aren't going to do that. Maybe there's some people who are incredibly charitable, but most people aren't going to do that. But also it sort of erases the reality that like working really hard and achieving something and getting better at something is actually very like self-fulfilling. It's really good for your confidence. It helps you get to know yourself, which also builds confidence. And this is what these leftists are all doing, essentially. All of these, I mean, especially the younger leftists. It's like you shouldn't have to challenge yourself. You shouldn't have to do anything that scares you. You shouldn't have to do anything that's hard. You should be comfortable all the time, and everything should just be given to you. I mean, all these, what is it, like Generation Z? I almost said millennials, but every time I say millennials, people scream at me, and they're like, we're not millennials. I'm like, okay, whatever. Everybody who's younger than me who's bad. Like, like they think they complain constantly about not having anything. Have you noticed that? Like online, it's like, oh, all these older people with their houses and their money and their jobs, and all we have is like debt and like climate change and nothing. And I'm like, you're 20 years old. You're supposed to have nothing. You deserve nothing. You're a useless person. Like what do you like? I mean, think about.
Well,
like,
I wouldn't say they're useless.
When I
but
was
they're-
20, I think I was quite useless.
Were you?
I mean, I was just at the bar. Like, I mean, it's still at the bar, but I'm productive aside from just being at the bar. But I think when I was 20, I was literally just at the bar. I don't know. You don't know anything when you're 20. You don't know
you're
yourself.
Learning. You're learning, but you have a lot of hubris. People, they have a lot of ego, and they also want success immediately. They want it right now.
Yeah. They're like, why don't I have a house?
That's
They're like,
part of the culture of, participation trophies and this coddled helicopter parent culture where kids haven't experienced, in general, they haven't experienced as much hardship as people of previous generations, as much difficulty in getting through life. And also they've been told, each one of them, that they're special and unique, and told things like body positivity, which is one of my favorites. Like, it's okay to be a glutton. It's body positivity. Like, you
love
should
yourself.
Love yourself.
Eat that cupcake.
You should love yourself, but she's also realized that cupcakes are basically poison that tastes good.
Yeah.
It's basically like a very slow drip poison.
Yeah.
I eat them. I eat a cupcake every now and then.
I really like cake a lot.
That's good.
Yeah, but it's
very yummy.
Not every day.
Not every
it does.
day,
It tastes
yeah.
really good.
Tastes great.
I mean, and this plays into the gender identity stuff, right? Because, I mean, this is really, again, taken over the younger generation who expect to be validated.
Yeah.
They expect to, have a feeling and that to be validated. Like, I feel non-binary. It's like, good for you. That doesn't mean anything. Also, you're not special. You're just like everyone else. I think if you actually tried to explain what non-binary means, which most of them can't in any kind of cohesive way, you would discover that everybody is a bit non-binary. Like, I don't subscribe fully to femininity. I'm obviously not a very passive person. Like,
Tell me, box.
I love punching things. Yeah. Shout out to my trainer, Chris at Quilombo and Sayulita. You have to come visit us, by the way. It's a Muay Thai gym. I was telling you before the show, but he's doing jiu-jitsu tournaments there. So they just did the white belt tournament, and then they'll move up, and I think probably by around March they'll do the black belt tournament. So
That's awesome.
You should come visit.
How many people live in that area?
Okay, so in Sayulita, like, I think people who actually live there year round is probably, I'm probably going to get this wrong, but like maybe around like 2,500.
That's it.
And then there's tons of tourists that come. And I was one of those tourists, but I never left. So now I'm a local.
So you went there as a tourist because you were kind of stuck in Canada. Canada's lockdowns are fucking preposterous. And by the way, did you see Trudeau yesterday on TV using different pronouns to describe the recession and the recovery?
The she session?
Yeah. Did you see that?
I didn't actually watch it,
Go
but
to
I did.
Jordan Peterson's Instagram or his Twitter page. He retweeted it and said that this cannot be shared enough. Like, people need to understand how ridiculous this person is. But
He's the worst.
what is he doing, though? Why would he do that? Like, what's the motivation to do that? He's just making up for all the times he wore brown face? Like,
Yeah.
what is...
I mean,
'Cause he
I
did wear it
don't
quite a bit,
know. I mean, a few times. I mean, that's the thing I care about least in terms of Trudeau.
Yeah.
I mean,
Here it is. Let's hear this. Take it from the beginning, because it's...
It is exactly the example of the kinds of things you need to do to counter the she session and turn it into a she-covery. Fact is, the Conservatives don't talk about that in their lengthy platform. It is...
What?
like, is it that the recession is sexist? So he's called... What the fuck is a she-session? Like,
What does that mean?
I don't know. I
She
think-
session and she covery?
I think he's probably... I'm assuming...
He's such a tryhard.
He's such a loser. He's trying to say, like, maybe that women... Is he trying to say that women suffered more during COVID financially?
He's not saying shit. He's not saying shit.
That's
He's just
true.
making up words.
I should
But
stop giving him so much credit to think that he's actually
How many
saying
terms has he done?
something. So this is 2.
This is his second term, so he won the second term.
Yeah.
When did that happen?
Please don't ask me questions like this.
Sorry. But you're a Canadian.
No, I know. I have a terrible memory, though.
But that's
It's like,
hilariously bad. Because I could tell you when Biden got elected.
he just called a new election, so there's going to be another election in October. So he's been in for a while now.
He called an election, so
Yeah.
he gets to say, let's have a new election?
Yeah, and I
Why would he do
assume,
that?
well, I assume it has something to do with COVID and how well he thinks he's handled COVID. And he hasn't. He's been the worst. I mean, their shutdowns in Canada were psycho and never ending and like destroyed, so many businesses, so many small businesses. We've all been miserable. I mean, this is literally why I left the country. No, I mean, the politics in Canada are terrible, and the Liberal Party are also right now trying to push through all these anti-free speech bills. And I honestly got scared that I was like, I'm not going to be able to work here. I'm going to get arrested. There's 2 bills, I think, Bill C-36 and Bill C-10. And one of them is to regulate online speech. So what it would do is it would force platforms like YouTube or Twitter or Facebook to take down content that the Canadian government deemed to be hate speech. So basically everything that I do, because they're on board with all this gender identity shit, right? And it's practically illegal to say anything critical about COVID or vaccines and all of that stuff too.
Really?
Yeah, and the other one is about changing hate speech laws. I mean, they're working so hard to limit free speech in Canada, and nobody cares. Like, Canadians are the most passive people I have ever encountered, and they have no idea why any of these things are important. Before I moved to Mexico, I was like thinking about moving to the U.S., like to Texas, for example, because I think it's going in a really, really dangerous direction, and nobody's doing anything or saying anything, or very few people in any case. And this is our, progressive, like, feminist prime minister. People really, really trust the government. So all these ongoing restrictions that were happening during COVID, people genuinely believe that the government has their best interests in mind. And they think that if they just keep following the rules, then things will work out for them, even if that's irrational, even if they've seen we've been following the rules this whole time and nothing's changed. We're not being given our freedoms back. In fact, they're working to take away more of our freedoms. You can't. It's illegal to say that you can't gather with other people, like you can't have religious gatherings, that you can't go to church, that you can't protest. And that's what they did over COVID, right? It's like this BLM protest that happened during COVID is fine, but this, like anti-lockdown protest is illegal, essentially. And people don't see why that's a problem, and it's crazy to me, and it's super scary to me.
De Blasio did that in New York City as well. Mm-hmm. He said the only protests that are acceptable was Black Lives Matter protests. I'm like, you're not allowed to do that, you fuck.
No,
you're not allowed.
That's not how rights work.
Especially in America. Like, I don't know how it works in Canada, but that you can't do that. but he did it. And this is the same guy that just made a vaccine passport. And I have a real problem because I have a show there in Madison Square Garden in October, and I've already sold 13,000 tickets. And now they say that everybody has to be vaccinated. And, I want everybody to know that, you can get your money back. I don't know what to do. I'm stuck in this situation. If someone has an ideological or a physiological reason for not getting vaccinated, I don't want to force them to get vaccinated to see a fucking stupid comedy show.
No, I mean, people should be able to make their own choices about their health and their bodies. But beyond that, I mean, vaccine mandates don't even work. Like, I think in Sweden, they've never had mandates, and yet more people are vaccinated in Sweden. Like, they have a super high vaccination rate. I mean, when you're telling somebody you have to do this, I think there is going to be some kind of questioning. Obviously not for a lot of people who are like eagerly getting on board. But I mean, speaking personally, I'm much less likely to do something if someone tells me I have to. I'm like, no, you don't tell me what to do. I'm going to figure this out myself. Like, why do I have to? Like, what's happening here?
Well, here's my main problem with it. There's a lot of people that have gone through COVID already, and they have natural immunity, and they're telling them they have to be vaccinated too. But that's not logical. It's not rational, and it's not supported by science. This doesn't make sense.
No, none of it makes sense. And Trudeau just announced the other day that all government employees essentially were going to have to be vaccinated to work.
What about government employees that have gotten COVID and recovered?
Exactly.
And have antibodies?
But also, you can't say you can only have a job, i.e., you can only survive if you get this vaccine. I mean, why is this legal?
Well, not only that, it's not really a vaccine in the traditional sense. A vaccine is where they take a dead virus and they turn it into a vaccine and they inject it into your body so that your body fights off, it develops the antibodies, and your body understands what that is, whether it's the measles or polio. It knows how to fight it off. This is really gene therapy. It's a different thing. It's your body. It's tricking your body into producing spike protein and making these antibodies for COVID. But it's only good for a few months. Like, what they're finding out now, the efficacy wanes after 5 or 6 months. I'm not saying that people shouldn't take it, but I'm saying you're calling it a thing that it's not. It's not exactly what you're saying it is. And you're mandating people take it. And there's no repercussions if they have any side effects. There's nothing they can do about it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think most people probably don't. I mean, I've gotten a flu shot once in my entire life, and it wasn't because I was like scared of getting the flu. I think I've never really thought about vaccines that much before, to be honest. Like, so I was just like, okay, sure, I guess I'll get them. And I was at the doctor's office, and she was like, "Do you want a flu shot?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, sure." But I'm not, I never got flu shots before that. Like, I'm healthy. I have a strong immune system. I'm not worried about getting sick. I'm not worried about COVID. Why do I need a vaccine? Like, why do young, healthy people need a vaccine?
The idea is that you're going to give it to other people and then you're going to spread it. The problem
But they
with
have
that
a vaccine, so how am I giving it to them?
Here's the problem. The problem with that is even when you're vaccinated, you can get it and you can spread it. So none of this makes sense.
No, so there's no point in any of this.
That's the only thing that is true is that if you're vaccinated, you have a better time recovering from COVID.
They should try ivermectin.
Should they?
Am I allowed to say that?
I think you're allowed to say it. I think they need real studies on ivermectin. That's what I think.
I mean, I'm not a doctor.
I'm not a doctor either. I think they need real studies. I think there's there's some interesting evidence that shows that prophylactically it's very effective. It's very effective to stop people from getting it. And there was a study out of Argentina, I believe, where they give it to frontline healthcare workers. And the healthcare workers that took it, it was like 100% of them didn't get COVID. And the ones that didn't, I believe it was almost half of them got it. Somewhere in the neighborhood of half of them got it and half of them didn't get it. So,
I mean, my understanding is just that your symptoms were worse or less bad and you would recover faster.
If you got vaccine.
No, if you take ivermectin.
Yeah, well, the vaccine as well, though. That's the same thing.
Oh, okay.
Even people that do get COVID when they've been vaccinated, it's a safer experience for them.
Well, okay, but the point is that ivermectin is an option that's essentially been banned in North America, whereas in Mexico, you can buy it over the counter at a pharmacy for real cheap. And supposedly, I mean, there is research that shows that it helps. And yet in North America, they're just pushing vaccine as that's the only option. And it's not the only option.
Yeah, there's options for treatment. And the big one that I've been pushing from the beginning is, God, if there's ever been a wake-up call where you have clear reason to take care of your body, now's the time. Like, please, if you're listening to this, lose weight. Please exercise. Please take vitamins. Please eat healthy foods. Please. That will have a significant impact in your ability to withstand anything, not just this virus, but all viruses, all colds. You'll have a more resilient body. You'll have a better immune system. This is all proven stuff. This is not voodoo. Like, if you eat well and sleep well and take vitamins and exercise, you have a better immune system. It's a fact.
Yeah.
It's how it works.
There's like basic practical things that you can do. I mean, there's basic practical things that you can do, obviously, to improve your health and to avoid, getting real sick if you get COVID or whatever. But there's also like this frustrates me a lot. There's basic practical things that you can do to help your own mental health.
Yes.
So this thing where it's like, we throw prescriptions at people for everything. We do that for, physical health reasons, but we also do this for mental health reasons. And it's like, it seems really weird to me that so many people are really, really depressed and they all need to be on drugs for depression. And I would like to offer exercise, doing something useful with your life that makes you feel good about yourself and productive and like you've succeeded. Like, try to learn and become better at like a new skill.
Yeah. People don't want to hear that, though. They want that pill.
Yeah, I mean,
there's a lot of people that really don't want to hear that. They want to pretend that, well, first of all, with some people, there's a legitimate issue. There's an absolute issue that can't be resolved with exercise and diet. We have to make room for those people.
It's a chemical imbalance.
Yeah.
All of it.
Some of it. I think for some people it's real.
Sure. Yeah, of course. Totally. But not all of it and not for everybody.
A lot of people. In fact, there was a study that showed that physical exercise was as effective, if not more effective, for treating depression statistically than SSRIs. See if you can find that. It was rigorous cardiovascular exercise as or more effective than SSRIs to treat depression.
I mean, and I'm going to be honest. Like, I have not.
Are you going to be honest?
I'm going to start right now. Are you ready?
Is it this stuff? Is this, what do you call this?
I'm trying to go slow because, like, I mean,
slow. This stuff's horrific. I can't believe you purchased it.
Dude, I can drink so much of this stuff, and so I am trying to go slow.
How can you drink so much of this stuff? I take a thimbleful. I want to black out.
I really like it. I'm very good at drinking also.
I believe you. Are you a lush?
I said I'm very good at drinking. I feel like a lush has like a negative connotation, like you're drunk all the time. And I'm not drunk all the time.
You just lit
I can handle
a
my
lot?
booze. I like to party. Okay, so what I was going to say is that I'm going to be honest, I haven't always been like a big exerciser. I spent a very long time not exercising at all. And, a lot of that just had to do with the fact that, like when I was younger, I was like when I was a teenager, when I was in my 20s, I was like naturally thin. So I just didn't really have any reason to. And then, once you get older and your metabolism slows down, you start putting on weight and you're like, oh, shit, I guess I have to start exercising. But what I learned, and again, when I got to, I was working with a boxing trainer in Vancouver before I went to Sayulita, and I swim laps and I was doing some strength training, which I really enjoyed a lot. And then when I got to Sayulita, I found Chris in Quilombo and started working with him. And I really love it a lot. Like, it's fun. I mean, I feel like I want to kill myself every time I go and like lay down and die. And I complain a lot the whole time. I know you don't like complaining, but I'm a big fan of complaining. But, you know, like, it makes me feel like if I ever feel any kind of like anxiety or if I'm feeling sad about, like, it makes me feel so much better. I feel so much better about myself. I mean, just in terms of really basic stuff like building muscles, and you can feel your body changing, which is cool. But in terms of, I don't have major mental health issues, which I'm grateful for. Like, I've never had big issues with depression or anxiety or anything like that. But it just, you know, if I don't want to go, I'm like, okay, I gotta go. Like,
Right.
I feel like, I'm like, I feel bad. I feel sad. Like, I want to stay in bed. It always makes me feel so much better. And I just wish that people understood, like, it's not a
Yes.
lie. It
Right.
really, and it makes you feel better about yourself that you're doing something that's hard for you and that you're doing it, even if you don't want to go, like, even
Yeah.
if you're feeling lazy and you're like, I don't want to go. And then you go and you're like, I did it. Like, I can
Yes.
do things that I don't want to do. Like,
And they're beneficial.
it's just so good for, like, how you feel about yourself.
Yeah, I think what you're doing too, like boxing, is so good because there's something about like hitting a thing, like a punching bag, that is so stress relieving.
Oh yeah, it's
Like,
I love
the
it
best.
so much.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I'm really not good, so I don't want to pretend. I don't want to be like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I mean, I am getting better, but I'm just really slow, so it's frustrating.
Well, you don't have to be good just to hit things. Here it is. Rhonda Patrick. There you go. Moderate aerobic exercise improved depressive symptoms by 55% in adults with major depressions. Individuals with more severe symptoms and better reward processing seem to benefit from exercise the most.
I couldn't find the part of being better than SSRIs, but
That's pretty fucking
dependent
good.
on who.
55% is pretty fucking impressive. And this is a
Yeah.
Rutgers study. Yeah,
These are good
look,
stats.
you know, I've never had a problem with depression, but I've never not exercised. So I've been very fortunate that since I was a teenager, I've always exercised. I got involved in martial arts very early in life. And so I was involved with like very rigorous exercise from the time I was really young.
I regret. I don't have very many regrets in my life. I don't think that regrets are very useful, but I genuinely regret not having started boxing way, way, way earlier, just because, you know, when you start doing something like that in your 40s, you're just never going to be that good. Like, you're always going to be a bit slow. And I really
Do you
wish...
feel like you're physically slow?
I feel like...
Like fast twitch fibers, that kind of stuff?
I mean, I have bad knees, so I just can't move very quickly.
What's wrong with your knees?
Okay, well, I hurt my knee doing Taekwondo when I was like in my early 20s and never went to physio, and I was having issues with it. This is the least interesting thing I've ever said in my life. I was having like I had like this issue, actually a really gross issue with my knee when I was in high school. So I'd be like running or playing basketball or something, and my kneecap would move out of the way. Which would cause me to fall down and was very painful.
Your kneecap would move out of the way?
Yeah, so I'd be like in the middle of running and my kneecap would sort of shift. And then if your kneecap shifts and you try to bend your knee, you can't do it because your kneecap's not in the right place. And I think it created, it made my knee pretty sensitive. I didn't go to physio, so I actually can't. I'm trying to like explain what it is, but I don't know what it is. So I sort of already had a knee injury, and then I heard it doing Taekwondo. And again, just never dealt with it. So it's just, they're like, it's stiff and it
Can't
doesn't
believe
work
I'm going to bring this up
very
again,
well.
but there's a guy who's got a website called, his Instagram is Knees Over Toes
Oh,
Guy.
you're trying to help me. You're not
Yes,
just
I
trying to
am.
make me talk about my
No,
weird
no,
knee
no, no.
injury in front
It's
of a
really
bunch of people.
got a bunch of great exercises for strengthening and stabilizing your knee.
Okay.
And
Weight
that I'm
training,
a big proponent of.
sorry, weight
Yeah.
training helped a lot.
Yeah,
Like
for
doing
sure.
like deadlifts and stuff like that, and doing squats helped a lot. Like they are totally way better than they used to be, but they're just stiff. And so I just feel like I can't move really quickly. And
weightlifting and squats and those sorts of exercises are great, but what he's emphasizing is a very specific range of motion with lifting weights that strengthens the knee when you put the knee in positions where it's generally thought of as being more unstable, like when your knees are over your toes. That's why he's knees over toes guy.
Okay.
And the idea is to like get it so that your knee can be very strong through the entire range of motion. So if you look at someone like who's jumping, like he uses basketball as an example, and it's a great example because, you know, when you're in the middle of like if someone's dribbling the ball and they're cutting left or right, there's often times where your knee is in these like unstable positions, or when you're jumping and landing, you know, your knee is over your toes, and his idea is to strengthen the knee in all of these ranges of motion where you traditionally would be weak, and make your knees and all the surrounding muscles strong so that you can move in any direction and never have a problem with that sort of instability.
Okay.
It's very beneficial. I do it all the time.
Yeah, this is great information. So in my brain, I can't run and I can't jump because it hurts my knee. Like if I if I tried to run like a couple blocks, it would make my knee kind of hurt and swell up. But in my brain, for a very long time, I've been like, I can't run, I can't jump. And so, I mean, I suspect that there is some kind of solution I could maybe move past this block. I was like, no, I can't jump rope. I mean, I don't want to jump rope.
You can't jump rope?
No.
Really? Just that?
Yeah, like it just
hurts your knee?
It hurts my knee. Yeah, like any kind of like.
Did you ever get an MRI?
No.
Maybe you should do one of those. They have those in Mexico?
Probably.
They just put your knee up to the light and
I'll check it out.
so look at it.
This is
What is
comes up.
patellar tracking disorder?
It's a
Patellar
shifting
tracking
kneecap.
disorder means that the kneecap shifts out of place as the leg bends or straightens. In most cases, the kneecap shifts too far toward the outside of the leg. In a few people, it shifts towards the inside. Your knee joint is a complex hinge that joins the two bones of the lower leg and the thigh bone.
That's just sort of maybe an explanation of.
Who is this guy that you
Exactly.
mentioned? What was his name again?
Knees over toes guy on Instagram. This is the man, Ben Patrick.
I really hope that my trainer didn't tell me about this and I forgot, and now he's
Look
going
at
to
some
kill
of the
me because
stuff
he's going
that
to
he's
be
doing.
watching and be like,
See
I
what he's
told
doing?
you.
See how he's doing
Oh,
that?
that scares me. Like the idea of trying to do that, I'm like, ugh,
But you see
my
how?
knee.
Yeah, she's doing it a little lighter with the.
Yeah, she's
lifting
got
and the
assisted
poles.
with
Oh,
poles.
Lord. This is
and
giving me
he's-
anxiety.
He's doing it with just body weight, and he's going way deep.
Oh, God.
But that's the way to do it. If you can do that, you can get to a point where, you know, and then you build up to it slowly. And he has like a whole system where you start out very slowly, and you know you progress towards what he calls dense strength. And these positions, like he's doing now, I do that all the time. I work at it all the time. It's really great for developing range of motion, strength, flexibility. Watch this shit that he can do, because this is so bizarre. He can go all the way down there like this,
Ugh.
and then pops all the way back up.
This, like,
And this guy's had major knee surgeries.
okay.
And they were, you know, he was told at one point in time that there was nothing that he was going to be able to do about his knees.
This is stressing me out only because I'm thinking about how much this would hurt my knee, and I'm like, oh.
Well, it's a great program.
But I mean, I think that what I've learned from this conversation is that I was right to never go to physiotherapy and just to come on your podcast.
Maybe the
Find solutions.
physiotherapy people would have prescribed something similar along the same lines.
It probably would have helped, but
Yeah.
too late now.
Is it though?
No, that was no. Okay, I'll try to do something and I'll stop being like, I can't jump rope or run. So I mean, to be fair, I hate running and jumping rope. So
Yeah. Well, maybe the running thing, you build up to that. You know, if your knee swells up
and
when
then
you run,
I won't have an excuse anymore.
you might have something going on there. You might have like a bad meniscus tear or
Yeah,
some cartilage damage or something. You
probably
know,
there's something going
yeah.
on.
could be. Yeah.
Is this what we came here to?
Yeah, we can talk about anything. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what
I
we
feel
talk
like
about.
I'm almost done my drink. Like, how
Yeah.
far are you into your drink?
Pretty far in.
Oh God, pussy.
What are you talking about? I'm almost done.
Okay,
This
okay.
nasty shit you fucking forced me to drink.
It'll grow on you.
But it won't. I like whiskey. I like things that taste good.
Okay, let me ask you a question.
Please do.
Since this is my podcast, you use correct pronouns, correct? Is that right?
Correct pronouns.
Right. So if a man identifies as a woman, you'll call him her or she.
If that's what she wants or he wants, yeah.
Okay, so why is that?
Because if that's what they want, I don't give a shit.
Okay, but don't you think
I'll change their name. If they want to be called Debbie, okay, Debbie.
The name doesn't bother me
give a
that
fuck.
much. One-on-one, I would do that. Like, if I was, like, talking to a friend and they identified as she and they
Right.
were a man, then I don't feel like I would be super inclined to be like, he.
Right. To make a statement
Yeah.
about doing it.
But I feel like in public, it has wider repercussions, and I feel like it participates in this greater lie that if you identify as the opposite sex, that's what you are. And I feel also that it's unnecessary because I feel like it plays into this idea that it's offensive to say what I say, for example. Like, so the fact that I called Yaniv him, or, you know, I refuse to use correct pronouns unless it's like on a personal level. Then I don't care. I'm not trying to be rude.
And you do for a point. You're making a point.
Yeah, I'm doing it, you know, yeah, exactly. I feel like it sells out people who don't use correct pronouns. I feel like it plays into and reinforces this idea that it's offensive, and it's not offensive, you know. To call a man he isn't offensive. To call a male a man isn't offensive. You're just stating a neutral fact. So I sort of feel like the more people that participate in that, the more it does make it seem like a crazy, offensive, like hateful, really mean thing to say if you don't use correct pronouns. And I feel like that's a standard that's been set by companies like Twitter. Like, people often say to me, like, they act like I'm being stupid when I talk about this. They're like, who cares? You got kicked off of Twitter. No big deal. And it is a big deal for me because I'm independent. Like, I don't work for anybody. I don't have some other job. I've built my own platform. I've created my own audience. This is how I make an income. So it does matter to me in that sense. But it's also that it's like set a precedent, right? Like, it says, people will say, oh, Meghan's hateful. Like, Meghan's a really bad person. Meghan's transphobic. She even got kicked off Twitter. So, and, you know, because it's sort of seeped into journalism, for example, so people will report stories about pedophiles and rapists and abusers and use their preferred pronouns because that's like the polite thing to do. I feel like I'm not trying to be like, I came here to call you out, but I think people don't understand why it matters sometimes. So they don't understand why I'm doing it because they're like, why don't you just be nice? Like, why don't you just use the correct pronoun?
Right.
And for me, it's like a much bigger thing than just a one-on-one interaction or like a polite thing.
Well, it's certainly a new thing. And one of the problems with new things like this is that people, they want to reinforce it to the point where it's like doctrine. You know, like where there's no getting around it. Like, this is the rule, and you have to abide by that rule, or you're a piece of shit. But it is, you know, when it comes to like men with beards and penises and testicles that want you to call them a woman, like, aren't you just crazy?
Yeah.
Like, what is going on here? You're saying you want me to call you a woman, but you have a full beard. Like, I was looking at this one person. I don't need to name this person, but there's this one person that said, you know, that some women have penises, and if you don't like that, you can suck my dick. That was a direct quote.
I saw somebody say that too. I don't know if it
With
was
a
the
full
same
beard.
person.
With a full beard, like terrorist beard.
Oh, I know what you're
Yeah.
talking about. I can't remember his name.
But it's like,
I saw that.
and wearing a dress. I'm like, you're throwing it in everybody's face that they have to accept that there's no way you're a woman. Right, you're clearly exhibiting all these masculine characteristics, but yet you want to be defined as a woman because you want to be special, because you want special treatment, and maybe you do have gender dysphoria, and maybe you do enjoy wearing a beard as well with your gender dysphoria, but there's also something about you that enjoys this authoritarian aspect of this forcing people to comply with calling you a woman.
Yeah.
It's fucking strange because there are definitely people with legitimate gender dysphoria that want to be a woman and they're biologically male. And then there's grifters. There's crazy people. There's people that have locked onto this movement and they recognize that there's this thing that's happening now where if someone says this, you can't say anything about them. Like, you can't criticize their behavior. You can't criticize the way they communicate or discuss because this person is now in a protected class because it's a trans woman. And so they can act batshit fucking crazy. Whereas if they were just a man, you'd be like, that guy's a fucking asshole. But since it's a trans woman, you're like, everyone backs off because they don't want this anti-trans label attached to them. They don't want to be accused of dead naming her, and so they back off.
Yeah, and I think you're right that there is like something that they enjoy about having that kind of power and nobody can challenge them and it's like bow down. I mean, the other part of it that people don't talk about is that like a lot of these guys have fetishes. Like some of them are mentally ill. Some of them are just liars and they're just trying to, like Charlotte Clymer. Do you know who he is?
No.
What was his name before he changed his name? I'm going to get arrested for saying this.
You can say whatever you want.
We're
on
thank you.
Spotify. Like YouTube's not going to pull it.
Okay.
We're in a weird realm because Spotify.
I thought they were trying to get you canned.
No.
Oh, those people don't have power over you, huh?
They don't have any power.
They sure thought they did. I
Well,
found that very cute. I was like, you
very-
guys are going to get Rogan pulled? Like, good for you.
A very small group of people that misrepresent my stance on things too, by the way. They characterized me in a very it's a caricature of who I am versus the actual words that I say and why I say them. And you take things out of context and try to pretend that I'm an anti-trans person or homophobic or when none of those things are true. So like their motivation for doing it was just they don't want any gray area. My only dispute about trans people came because of a trans woman who was competing as a female in MMA fights without telling these women that she's fighting that she was a man for 30 fucking years and just recently became a trans woman and was beating the shit out of them. And I was like, this is fucked.
And it's gross because that guy knows he's a guy. Like it's, these people, like that weightlifter Laurel Hubbard, you know you're a man. Like, you're cheating. You know this isn't fair. And you're doing it anyway. I have no respect for that.
Did you see the actual competition? She dropped the weights. It was like, I almost feel like she just quit because she didn't want the heat of possibly winning.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't actually watch. I just read about it after the fact.
Yeah, it was a whack attempt.
Weird.
Yeah, it looked whack. To win, to get to represent New Zealand in the Olympics, and then that's how you handle it. Did you ever see like when she's on the podium and those other two biological females are beside her and they're like, what in the fuck? Because she's number one and they're sitting there like, this is some fucking bullshit. You can see the look on their faces. Have you seen it?
Did you watch the No Thank You?
What's
the press
No Thank
con?
You?
Oh, you didn't?
No,
This
what's
is the
that?
best clip.
What?
I don't know where you can find it. It's on my Instagram. Okay, but so the chick that won at the weightlifting competition, at the press conference, they asked her, like, so, like, what do you think about this historic moment when a trans whatever they said was competing? And she just doesn't say anything. She's like, no, thank you. That's her response to the question. It's the greatest thing I've ever seen.
No,
but, like,
thank
they
you.
weren't
Yeah.
down. They were like,
Right.
and how
Especially
how
weightlifting.
insulting to be like, she won, and you're gonna say like, oh, isn't it amazing that a man tried to compete against you? What a historic moment!
Historic
Like,
moment. Yeah.
it's so offensive.
Historic moment. I can't wait until there's real. We're going to get to a time, I think, maybe sometime in our lifetime, where a man can become a woman, like legitimately.
No, like how? What does that mean?
Science, like some sort of literal change of their actual physical biology.
Like you would change their chromosomes,
Yes.
and they would have a functioning uterus, and
If we can get to a point where there's a complete understanding of all the processes that are involved in taking a fetus and having it become a grown adult, and if we can bypass some of those processes in a male to convert a male to a female or a female to convert a female to a male, like that's not outside the realm of possibility. Like literal artificial biological life is not outside the realm of possibility. My point is it's not here. My point is if one day it happens, then you'll have a real woman. Like it'll really be a woman. Like you'll be able to turn someone with an XY chromosome into someone with an XX chromosome. How the fuck are you going to do it? I don't know. But it's not, look, we can make nuclear bombs. We send video through the air. If people keep working on things, I don't think it's an insurmountable obstacle. When that happens, then we'll be dealing with a completely different thing. Because then, like, you will be like, one day I'll see you, and I'm like, when did you become a dude? And you're like, I got tired of this bitch shit, and
I changed my mind.
yeah, I want to be a guy. Fuck it.
I want to be able to beat people up.
Yeah, I want to be jacked.
No, that'll never happen.
No, but you enjoy being a woman.
Yeah.
But imagine if you didn't. Imagine if you really felt like you should have been a man this whole time, and then someone can actually give you some gene therapy, and you actually do become a man.
I mean, I think that would be.
What would your male name be?
Oh my God, I don't know. What do you think my male name should be? Do you have any idea? Mike. I have I had an ex-boyfriend named Mike.
Oh, fuck that guy.
I don't want it. He's nice. It's okay.
How about Mark?
I had an ex-boyfriend named Mark also.
Oh, how many exes?
Mark was my first boyfriend.
Let's keep going down the Rolodex.
Okay, try another one.
Tom.
No, I've never had an ex-boyfriend named Tom. I have a friend named Tom.
Do you want to be exotic?
I feel like more these are really boring names.
Manuel, because you're living in Mexico.
Oh,
Let's get
okay.
exotic.
Like an ethnic name.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
Irish, man. You can't call me Manuel.
Yeah, you can.
Okay, give me an Irish name. Like I could be Colin, I guess.
Colin. How about Colin?
I don't want to be a man.
Okay.
I was like, wait. I changed my mind.
If there is, I was talking to a friend of mine on the podcast about if there was a time where you could give someone a pill and it would alleviate gender dysphoria. Like imagine if gender dysphoria was something where they isolated it and they figured, there's a protein that's off, or we figured out how to do this. And through this medication, you will no longer have gender dysphoria, and it's permanent.
That would be a great solution. The solution of getting a ton of really awful, painful these are still experimental surgeries. Like the surgeries that trans people get to transition, they're really horrible, they're ongoing, they're experimental. I think these surgeons should be sued.
What do you mean, the ones that turn a penis into a vagina?
Totally. Obviously, breast implants they've got that covered. But the genital, creating a penis or a vagina. I mean, I know trans people who've had these surgeries, and it's just like a nightmare. And your genitals don't work anymore, and you can't have good sex. You obviously can't reproduce. You can't have an orgasm anymore. You're fucking mangled. It's a lie. It's such a lie to tell people right now anyway, who knows about this, horrible future that you're predicting.
Is it horrible?
Well, that's not how nature works. That's not a healthy thing for humanity to do.
There's a lot of things that we do that are not how nature works.
Okay, well, I think this is a not good thing to do. That's not how nature works. But people are being lied to. They're being told that they can change sex and they can't change sex. And they're being mangled and they're being given these high doses of hormones that are really harmful. These are things that will cause cancer. And people just, they pretend it's possible and it's not possible. And you end up, I think so many trans people go through all these processes and transition. And then I'm I'm still not what I wanted. I still look like a man. It's very hard for an adult man to ever actually look like a woman. Most of them don't look like women. They look weird, or they still just look like men, but they have implants and makeup and long hair or whatever. But you can't change the way they move, their bone size, their hand size, the way that they walk.
But some people clearly feel happier once they've done it.
If they feel happy, that's great. But I think
Caitlyn
a lot
Jenner. Don't you think Caitlyn Jenner feels happier?
Probably.
Yeah.
I've never quite been able to figure out. My theory about Caitlyn Jenner is that he just felt in the shadow all the time. I don't know if you watched Keeping Up Kardashian.
Oh, yeah.
You do? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
It's
my wife watched it, so I've sat many times over her shoulder going, what the fuck are you watching? What is this?
Yeah.
And she would go, you should watch this. It's
I agree, you should watch.
It's very compelling.
I don't know why it's compelling.
It's very well edited.
Very compelling. I think I watched the whole thing from the beginning like 2 years ago. Like I didn't watch when it was on. I just decided I was like I should watch this show.
When
and went
Caitlyn
back
was
to the
Bruce,
beginning.
they shit on him.
He like hid in the TV room alone, looking sad for so.
Yeah, he was the one that was like the brunt of all the jokes. They mocked him. He seemed like and the only one that's accomplished on the entire. I mean, he's a fucking goddamn Olympic gold medalist in the decathlon, like a legit Olympic gold medalist. 1776, cover of Wheaties.
Yeah.
America, fuck yeah. And now here he is in this house of like these weird internet influencers, and this one accomplished person is the brunt of all the jokes. It's very strange.
Well, and also, I mean, yeah, and they all, I felt, I mean, I had sort of a different perspective than you did. Maybe this is like because you're a man and I'm a woman, but I was like, this guy is kind of like he wants more attention and he's mad that he's not getting attention and all these chicks are getting all the attention and he's like, I know how to get attention. I'm going to become one of them. And it worked.
Maybe definitely changed the whole attention spectrum. Oh my goodness, right?
Yeah.
Changed it radically.
But I believe that he probably did have, I think he had a fetish. He, was wearing his daughter's clothes and underwear and stuff like that. Like,
Is that what you heard?
yeah. Oh, that's totally public information.
Oh.
And he also, I read an interview with him. It's older, but I think it was in Vanity Fair or something like that. And he would talk about, like, he would wear pantyhose under his pants. Like, he was really into wearing women's clothes. And that's what autogynephilia is. Like, it's having a fetish for dressing like a woman or imagining yourself as a woman, like it turns you on. And there's research. Ray Blanchard did research around this. He's a sexologist. And found that essentially, like, all trans women were either effeminate men or gay men, or they were autogynephiles. And the men who transitioned when they were younger were the effeminate gay men, and the men who transitioned when they were older, like 40s, 50s, 60s, were the autogynephiles, who have like this fetish. And of course, he's been like canceled many times over because that's not something that you're supposed to talk about. But usually what happens with the older guys who transition, it's like about that fetish. And again, whatever. Like, honestly, do what you want. Do whatever makes you happy, but stop trying to lie and say, like, I'm a woman on the inside. I'm a literal female.
So as a woman, you find this offensive as an actual biological woman?
Totally, of course. Like, being a woman isn't about, like, having long hair, wearing makeup, or like...
But here's where it's different. As a man, I do not give a fuck if a trans person becomes a man. Like, if a woman chooses to be a man. Like, Buck Angel?
Yeah.
I've had Buck Angel on the podcast. We had this conversation.
I interviewed him. I call him. He's my friend. Like, I'm
he's
like,
a great
whatever.
guy.
And he's not trying to force me to pretend that he's a literal male. So I don't care. Like, sure.
Great guy. Really
he's
interesting
really
to
nice.
talk to.
Yeah.
And, when he said, do you consider me a man? I go, yeah. That's what you want. Yeah. And I'll treat you like you're a man, talk to you like you're a man. I'll call you Buck. It doesn't matter at all to me. Like, I would never say it's offensive that you are pretending to be a man. Like, that has zero registry. It doesn't register at all with me.
I mean, I think it has no impact on you. Like, the men transitioning to women has a really, really big and negative impact on women and girls.
I was going to get to that.
Yeah.
This is the thing, is that men transitioning to women use male tactics and male behavior as they invade feminist spaces. And that's one thing that I have seen that women get really kind of freaked out by, is that trans women then join these women groups and dominate them like men do. Mm-hmm. They have male minds. Mm-hmm. They have, years and years of having gonads and having testosterone flow through their body and all of the, hypersexual things that come from that. And one thing that comes from being a biological male is they generally tend to be more aggressive. They tend to be more assertive. They tend to, to try to dominate whenever possible. If left unchecked and if their egos are not, well managed. But the big complaint that I hear from women, especially women that get labeled as TERFs, is that these trans women invade these traditionally just biological women groups, and they sort of handle them like a man.
Mm-hmm. And or they're predators. I mean, like,
right.
Or worse. Like,
or
it's
worse.
like, I wonder what kind of, this is not the worst of all the examples by far, but it's like, what kind of man actually wants to go into a woman's change room? Like, what would be your motivation for doing that?
Well, you could wish you were a woman and want to be a woman.
But you must have some inclination that this is going to make women feel uncomfortable. And I think they kind of get off on that. Like, what kind of man wants women to feel uncomfortable?
Maybe they want people to be accepting, want people to be open-minded to this and not have an issue with it at all.
I mean, that's very inconsiderate. Like, it's like, okay, maybe they just want to be accepted and they want validation, and they're like, and they genuinely believe they're a woman, so they want to be treated like a woman, so they want to be in the change room with all the other women. But I mean, who is actually that delusional?
Yeah.
Maybe some people, but I think that there's something predatorial just in the wanting to be in those spaces where they know that women don't want them there, like where they know that they're making women uncomfortable and they're doing it anyway.
When my children were young, when I have all daughters, and when they were young, one of the weird things was if they have to go potty and it's just me, I can't just send them into the women's room, and I can't go into the women's room with them. So I have to take them into the men's room. So, like, I'm talking like carry them, like this age, right? So I'm like either holding the hand and walking with them, or I'm carrying them into the male bathroom. And even then, it seems weird. It seems like I remember thinking, like, I can't wait until this stops. Because I don't want to bring my little baby daughter into a room full of dudes. Mm-hmm. It's just odd.
You
and
just
even
feel
though it's
inherently a bit uncomfortable about that.
Yeah, it's not. I didn't feel like I was in danger or she was in danger. I didn't feel like that, but I was like, this is like a societal thing, right? This is a cultural thing, because in some cultures they have open bathrooms and men and women share bathrooms, and that's just always how it's been. But it's not how it's been in America. So when I'm carrying a little girl or walking with a little girl into the men's room, it's weird. Mm-hmm. Louis C.K. had a bit about taking his daughter to the bathroom and then, like, two guys are shitting right next to, like, he's got her on the potty, and two guys are, like, having these horrible shits in the left side and the right stall.
Men are so disgusting.
Yeah, they're gross, but girls are gross too. Everyone's gross, but it just felt odd, but at least I was with her. If I sent her in there, by herself, like, it would feel insanely odd.
But you should feel a bit odd about that. And I don't even think you need to be able to explain why. Like, it's so, the sports thing has been, I think, probably like the best in terms of opening up this conversation about, like, men can't become women, or maybe there's a problem with a man identifying as a woman, because people don't need an explanation. Like, people inherently will just look at this guy and be like, no, this is not fair. Like, you don't need an ideology. You don't need to be a feminist. You don't need to really to just see, like, you don't need to know about biology. You just know. You're like, no, this is wrong. Like,
the sports thing is the only reason why I got involved in this discussion at all. And then once I got dragged into it, I realized, like, first of all, they misrepresent your position in the most horrific way possible. And second of all, there's no one from the other side. There are no trans men that are competing against men in sports that are notable. It's just not an issue. It's not only is it not an issue, nobody gives a fuck. Like, all the men weightlifters, like, oh, you used to be a girl? Cool. Good luck. Good luck, bro.
Yeah.
Like, literally no one gives a shit, because there's no perceived, and not even perceived. Let's be real. It's a fucking advantage. There's a giant advantage. There's an advantage in tendon strength. There's an advantage in the shape of the hips. There's an advantage of years and years and years of having, like, huge levels of testosterone pumping through your system in terms of like a biological female. It's like if you took a woman and you put her on steroids for 30 years and then she got off steroids for a year and she was competing against women in sports, women would be like, this is fucking bullshit. Like, this lady's been cheating her whole life, and now all of a sudden she's off the steroids, so I'm supposed to just accept her as like a normal physiological female. Well, it's not. She's obviously been enhanced. Well, that's the same thing that if you grow up with testicles your whole life.
But even more so, right? Like, people act like puberty doesn't matter.
Right.
And that like rush of testosterone that happens when you go through puberty as a boy doesn't totally change your body.
Yeah.
And your brain.
It does. And again, no one gives a fuck if like some trans man wants to compete in the NBA. Good luck. Get on in there. A trans man who wants to compete in mixed martial. Well, you know, the problem with trans men competing in mixed martial arts or something like that is you wouldn't be able to, because it's not legal to take testosterone. So you literally wouldn't be able to. You know, Texas has a really wacky way of looking at it, where there was a trans man, well, a trans boy, I guess you would say, in high school wrestling. So this was a biological female that was taking testosterone, but they wouldn't let her compete as a boy. So they made her compete against girls while she was taking testosterone.
Weird.
So she's, you know, ragdolling these girls because she's on the juice. Like, literally. And, you know, and everybody was mad. But they were mad at the girl. And I'm like, well, is that her fault? You know, she'd really let this girl who wants to be a boy and is taking testosterone, let her compete against boys. Let's see what happens. No one would care. No one on the boys' side would care, is my opinion, is my position. And that's why this is such a fucking loaded issue, is because we know males have a physical advantage in running, in lifting weights, in most sports that involve power.
And I mean, and you can explain why. You can like talk to a scientist, you can talk to a doctor about, and they'll explain why. But everybody knows that men are stronger and bigger than women for the most part. And likewise, I just think that I think it's crazy. It makes me feel crazy to even have to explain to people like that a man shouldn't have access to a change room, or that a man shouldn't be in a transition house with women who are escaping violence,
sexual abuse.
Yeah. And that a man shouldn't be in a women's prison. Like, it's like, why? Well, like, you know why?
Right.
It's not because all men are rapists or all men are predators, but, you know, primarily the threat to women is men. Primarily the threat to men is other men. And also, why? Why do you want to be in these spaces?
Well, the woke ideology is so fucking weird that they literally have allowed men who are sexual abusers to transition to women and be incarcerated with women.
Yeah.
This is a real thing.
Yeah.
Like, that is so outside of any logic. That's such a crazy way to handle it. That you go, oh, you're a woman now? Sure. Guy who has sexually assaulted women, who has a history of this, is in jail for it. We're going to put you in with women.
Yeah.
Like,
and I mean, there's cases already. Like, there's a woman in Canada, Heather Mason, who's doing activism around this. And, you know, she was incarcerated for many years. And even before this was an issue, this was starting to become an issue where men who identified as women were being transferred into male prisons, and sexual assaults did happen. You know, there was like a fucking baby rapist in there with like a mom and the baby, like in some kind of middle, obviously not in the prison, but like, you know, like they're putting dangerous men who are predators, who are rapists, who are serial predators in with these women who are really vulnerable. I mean, think about the kind of women who are in prison. Like, these are actually, you care about marginalization? Who's in prison? Like, the most marginalized women in the entire country are going to be the ones who are in women's prisons.
Yeah.
And then you stick like a super violent rapist in there with them?
just because he identifies as being a woman.
And the government, the Canadian government, will not even acknowledge this is happening. They won't talk about it. The media won't talk about it. It's disgusting. And Heather told me, she was like, you know, like, I think something really, really horrible is going to have to happen before anybody pays attention. And it's true. And think about what is the really horrible thing when there's already obviously really bad things happening in these prisons. Like, like what is it going to take? And why is everybody pretending like this is okay?
Because
This
everyone's
is the
scared of the
liberal
blowback
government.
online. They're scared of the blowback online.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of it is, right?
Yeah. I mean, the liberal government, like, they're the worst. They're the worst.
Well,
And
your guy's the worst.
Yeah,
he's
Trudeau's the
He's the
worst.
worst I've ever seen.
yeah.
He's so ridiculous.
Yeah. And I mean,
This she-covery and she-session, like,
I mean, and it's...
who's that for? You think his wife makes him do that?
I think he does it because, I mean, I think he's just trying to win
This is
favor.
what I want you to do today at work, dear.
You know what it says, though? I mean, obviously it makes him look like an idiot, but it also makes Canadians vote for this guy.
Right,
They
right.
support him, and they're probably going to vote for him again. Like,
You think so?
Okay, listen. As I said, like, I'm a lifelong leftist. I voted for the NDP. That's our leftist party. That's like our Labour Party, basically, in Canada. My entire life, like, as soon as I was legal to vote, when I was 18, provincially and federally, in every single election, I voted for the NDP. Last election, I didn't vote at all because I was like, I can't, in good faith, vote for the Liberals or the NDP, and I didn't feel comfortable voting for the Conservative Party because I care about, like, healthcare. This year, I'll vote Conservative. Like, somebody who was, like, a crazy... Like, I was, like, an extreme leftist for all of my life until, 2 or 3 years ago. I'll vote Conservative because these people are so unethical and so dangerous. So dangerous. Like, they're
the
getting rid
erosion
of our
of
rights,
civil
our
rights,
free
yeah.
speech.
The erosion of civil rights is the most disturbing aspects of it because they're willing to accept the erosion of rights and civil liberties because it aligns with whatever ideology they're pushing.
Yeah.
And you're seeing that in America. You're seeing that, in a different realm with this whole COVID vaccine passport thing. There's people that are accepting this idea that the government's going to be able to dictate whether or not you go to places, whether or not you could eat dinner, whether or not you could do things depending upon your vaccination status, when they know that there's people that have gone through COVID and have natural immunity and it's just as robust, if not better. That's a fact. They know it, but yet they still are willing to accept these restrictions that you're going to give this new power to the government, and this government is now going to be able to dictate whether or not you're able to do things. And they like it. These fucking people that become governors and mayors, they like telling people what to do. It's part of the fun of the gig that they can tell people. Now, as the mayor of New York, I have decided you have to do this or you can't do that.
And it's
Here.
Yeah, and it's not just the politicians, like it's the regular citizens, like it's the public. I mean, the problem is not just that the people in power are doing this, it's that everyone's going along with it and supporting it. So many of my friends, when I went back to Vancouver in June to like deal with my apartment and my truck and like banking stuff because I'd abandoned all my things in Vancouver. And all anyone could talk about was the vaccine. Did you get the vaccine? Did you get the vaccine? Did you get the vaccine? I was like, are you all crazy? Like, do you not have anything else to talk about? First of all, it's none of your business. Like, why are you intruding into my personal life? Like, why are you asking me like personal health questions? But also, like, why do you care? And I would say, like, I was like, I don't know. I mean, I'll see. Like, I probably will have to eventually to travel. This was before there was like a mandate. And, I'd say like, I'm not super compelled, basically I was super vague about it. I don't want to have arguments with people about this. It's not even something I'm like that passionate about. And they would start arguing with me. Either if it was over text, they would start like bombarding me with links. You should really get vaccinated. You should really get vaccinated. You should really get vaccinated. And I was like, can we talk about something else? Like,
But there's a lot of people when they do something, they want everyone to do it.
yeah.
Once they do it, and especially if they do something that might be a little risky, it might be a little risky, but you did it and you got away with it. You should do it too.
Did you do it too?
You should do it
yeah,
too.
we all did it.
You
We're
should
okay,
do it.
Right? Right. This was
There's a
the
little bit
right
of
thing to
that.
do. Yeah.
These
yeah.
weirdly obsessed people.
And then this idea that, like everything will be okay.
Yeah.
If we all get vaccinated, everything will be okay. They'll give us our rights back and it'll all be fine. And, the way that people have started treating each other around this is like really disturbing. Like, blaming their loss of rights on people who didn't get vaccinated and like saying really like hateful things about people. Like, it's your fault. And, this is like a tactic. Like, I feel like this is how totalitarianism happens. It's like point your finger at your neighbor and then you don't pay attention to or hold, you're not holding the people in power accountable. They can do whatever they want because it's not them. They have your best interests in mind. It's your friend. It's your neighbor. Like, they're the problem. They're the danger. They're the enemy. It's fucking creepy.
It is fucking creepy. And it's real creepy that it's only about someone getting injected with the vaccine. It's not about, like, you're not going up to obese people and saying, you fucked this up. You fucking fatso. You get sick too easy and you're coughing on everybody and you're spreading it everywhere and people around you that aren't fat, they're not getting sick. So you fucked this up because you're a spreader. You're not hearing that, right? You're not hearing people get upset at other people for their personal choices.
Smokers,
drinkers.
Smokers actually do harm other people's health. Like, I don't like inhaling other people's smoke, but whatever. I'm sure there's lots of things that I do that are even worse. But you know what I mean? Like,
booze hound.
It's just that I like to party. That's all.
You like to party drinking fucking gasoline. I still haven't gotten through
finished
this.
mine like an hour ago.
Oh, yeah, well, you got an issue. Jamie can't even smell his without throwing up. Look at him over there.
Okay, well, I was interested to see the reaction and now.
This stuff? I guess if I was really lit, I'd like it.
Booze.
I don't know
I can drink it so easy that I have to like regulate myself.
That's weird. No, how do you feel about other booze?
I mean, I like scotch and whiskey. I like bourbon, and that's pretty much it. I really don't like vodka. I don't like gin. I like wine. But I'm not actually just like an alcoholic. I'm not just like, I love chugging booze.
Oh, yeah, no problem. Yeah, you're fine.
I'm fine. I'm good.
Nothing wrong at all.
No, and you know what? Actually, I mean, this is like a clean alcohol, so I don't actually get hangovers.
Oh, it's clean.
I'm a scientist. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier, and a doctor. I'm not.
You like clean eating? Like people eat clean?
Yeah, exactly
I like clean
that.
for the most part.
Kale,
and I drink clean.
Raicilla.
Yeah.
Same. Like I don't get hangovers because there's no sugar in it. So if you just drink Raicilla all night, I mean, you might...
Is that where you think the hangovers are coming from?
Sugar.
Really?
Okay, am I wrong?
Yeah, it's dehydration.
Oh, okay. I also drink a lot of water.
Well, there you go. That's why. That's why you're not getting hangovers.
I thought that it was because it wasn't like processed and there wasn't a bunch of like chemicals and sugar because it's like natural and clean.
Incorrect.
Okay.
Well, two things.
One,
according to Dr. Carl Hart, who's an actual addiction specialist, he says that what's happening is that your body actually becomes addicted to alcohol. And what hangovers are is there's an addiction process that happens during a drinking phase. So, like, say if you're drinking and you get boozed up that night, your body literally starts craving that alcohol. And that part of the hangover is you being addicted to alcohol. That's why people say, take a hair of the dog that bit you.
But I hate that. I never want booze the next morning. I think it's gross. Also, if I drink a bunch of Prosecco, I do get a hangover. But if I just drink Raicilla, I don't get a hangover.
Interesting.
So that's why I assumed there was like a sugar factor.
I don't think so. Well, I mean, there's probably a bunch of different biological reasons in different people. Sugar and alcohol both have a lot in common. They both cause dehydration, and they're both processed through the liver. These commonalities mean that when combined, sugary alcoholic drinks produce a much more severe hangover than alcohol alone. So like sangria would fuck you up.
Ugh.
There are many theories as to why sugary alcoholic beverages seem to result in a worse hangover than lower sugar counterparts, but no real proof positive. Daiquiris, sweet martinis, and Mai Tais all contain sugar and alcohol. What is this website? My Gut Health?
Something about
I just want to know if I'm right or not.
I don't know if that's true.
About my theory.
The thing that I've noticed is if I drink like electrolyte drinks, like electrolyte supplements, during and after the booze, it has a giant impact on what kind of headaches I have. And ironically, those things have sugar in them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that is
Electrolyte
interesting because,
supplements do
I'll
have
drink
sugar.
electrolytes after, like, if I've been out the night before, and
Yeah.
it does help a lot, but I didn't think about the sugar thing.
Yeah, like electrolytes like Liquid IV, which is my favorite one, has a very specific ratio of glucose to sodium and all the different electrolytes, potassium and whatnot. And it's like this scientifically designed way they've incorporated these things so it enters into your bloodstream quicker and more effectively, and it rehydrates you better.
Right.
So, but there is sugar in that. It's like it tastes good.
I mean, I do, like, I swear to, like, if I'm out drinking, I probably am also drinking like 2 or 3 liters of water. Like, I drink a lot of water.
I would like to see an actual study, not some wacky my gut health.
Here, 1998 study says the same thing pretty much.
Same thing. Dehydration and electrolyte imbalance. Oh, okay. Alcohol causes the body to increase. Well, that makes sense that electrolytes, if you had electrolytes afterwards, it would help juice it up.
It's also a low blood sugar thing.
Yeah, several alterations in the metabolic state of the liver and other organs occur in response to the presence of alcohol in the body. It can result in low blood sugar levels, low glucose levels, or hypoglycemia. So that would make sense where one of those electrolyte supplements would be really good after you drink. Alcohol-induced hypoglycemia generally occurs after binge drinking over several days in alcoholics who have not been eating. Oh, okay. So you got to eat too.
Damn.
Either way, not good for you.
I mean, so this, like, my theory about raicilla being healthy for me was
It's fucking
not
so bad for you.
like, I feel great. It's great.
I think you just sip it.
Like, what vitamins are in this booze?
Well, it's so rank that you have to just sip it.
yeah,
You know, because
yeah.
it tastes like shit. So if you were
It doesn't taste like shit. Like, I'm not trying to, like, seem tough. I genuinely like the way that it tastes.
I believe you.
I don't.
Obviously, people have different kinds of. they
What's
have
your
different
favorite
tastes.
booze?
I like whiskey.
Okay. I
Yeah.
also love whiskey. Whiskey's
Yeah.
a good one.
I like scotch. I like bourbon. I like a good, like, aged whiskey, like an 8-year whiskey. That's what I like.
Yeah. I mean, you can't drink that kind of stuff really fast either. Or I can anyway. I mean, I feel like whiskey is like a slow drinking thing. Even slower.
What? Slower than this horseshit?
Yeah, dude.
No,
I mean, and
nonsense.
again, like, I actually drink raicilla pretty quickly. So.
You did finish that, right?
I finished this so
Here.
long ago.
Wanted to hear.
Like, okay, a little bit left.
Get you some real stuff.
Yeah.
It's like a list of things I would rather drink than that. Jägermeister.
Okay.
This is still Austin. This is some local whiskey.
Oh, really? Okay, cool. Maybe I should buy some while I'm here.
I'll give you a bottle.
This is my... Really?
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you
This
so
is
much.
real
I'm
booze.
stoked.
All right, now we're drinking.
I want to see the label.
Oh my God, it's like Kool-Aid compared to
Oh,
that
it's
horse
so
shit.
good. It's not as good. Fine. It's fine. It's fine.
So, are you doing your podcast and everything out of Mexico?
Yeah. Which is, it's working okay. It's not ideal because the Wi-Fi situation in Sayulita is still a bit whack. Like,
Shocking.
yeah, the infrastructure there is not up to par as compared to
odd.
Vancouver.
How crazy.
It was like, duh. But also right now is the rainy season, so there's like crazy thunderstorms almost every night, and that also doesn't help with things like power and Wi-Fi. So it's a bit sketchier, but I have been able to manage to do it, which is great because I really don't want to go back to Canada ever again.
Ever.
I
So
hate it.
you
I hate it.
Really?
I hate it.
Because of all this political shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I loved it for a long time. Like, I was born in Vancouver. I've lived there my whole life. I have friends in Vancouver that I've known. Like, I have a lot of really close friends. Like, my family is there. Like, you know, like, I have friends there that I've known since I was 5 years old. And I still don't want to go back. And I hate it because I think the politics there are so scary. And it makes me feel so scared that nobody's standing up. That they're just going along. I
Because
really
they're so
think,
agreeable.
yeah, and they trust the government a lot, and they're really passive, and they're scared of their friends. Like, they're scared to say anything to go against the grain. Right?
That's been the most disturbing thing about this pandemic is people turning against other people.
Yeah.
And just being scared. Generally, when you put people in a high anxiety state and you make them scared, they get fucking sketchy. They get weird. It's hard to. They're not rational. It's hard to communicate with them rationally and logically.
Yeah, it's fear and lack of control because I find that so some of my friends are genuinely fearful about COVID and they're like, if I get COVID, I'm going to die. And I'm like, you're not going to die. You're not going to die. You're the same age as me. You don't have diabetes. You're not going to die of COVID. But there's a lot of people, I think, who just feel like they have no control over the situation, so they don't know what to do. So I think they try to control other people or police other people.
Yeah.
And that's their form of control. Or their form of control is following the rules. Like, okay, just shut down my brain, put my mask on, stay in my apartment, don't go anywhere. They just don't know what to do. And to me, that's not my nature. My nature is the opposite of that. So I don't totally relate. But yeah, Canadians, very passive, very interested in going along, very interested in being told what to do, and it's really dangerous. I feel like everybody needs to reread 1984. Actually, when I got to Mexico, the first book that I read, the last time I'd read it was in college or maybe even high school or something, and I reread it, and it was terrifying.
Yeah, it's very foreshadowing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And even that idea of, going along with something that you know to be untrue, you know that person's not really a woman, but you're just going to say it. That's
a step in that direction.
Yeah,
too.
exactly. And, it's really depressing and scary how many people haven't paid attention to history and can't see the path that they're going down.
Well, what's weird to me was that it was one of the first things that Biden did in getting into office was to make it so that high school kids can compete in the gender that they identify with. Out of all the shit that's wrong in this country right now, all the issues that we're facing, that's one of the first things you do. This weird, just fucking wave to the woke.
And he promised to do that. And he...
Yeah, but he doesn't remember.
I mean, fair, but I just mean people voted for him. Feminists that I know voted for him. Feminists who have been working against this gender identity shit for a long time and who have been fighting it still voted for Biden because they're like, oh, well, not Trump. Trump's awful. And I don't like Trump, but I didn't vote in this election. I actually am an American citizen, but I've never lived in America before, so I've not actually
How's
voted.
that work?
What?
How are you an American citizen?
My mom's American. I have dual.
Oh, nice.
I know. That's
So
why I was
move
like,
to
I could
Texas.
actually move here.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy in Mexico, but I actually have been considering trying to do part-time. I mean, it would be helpful for work and also accessing
Actual internet. Having
some
mail.
things that don't exist in my
Yeah.
dusty little weird sketchy Mexican town.
Yeah, there you go.
I could have clean clothes. But I said, I was like, if I lived in the US, I would vote for Trump. Because I think Biden's scarier, partly because of the gender identity stuff, which again he promised to do. He said, one of the first things that I'll do if I win the election is to, make it so that boys and men can compete against girls and women in sports. And he did. And, the fact that he's obviously in bed with big tech. And it's I may not like Trump and I may think he's an idiot or an asshole or a buffoon, but I don't at all think that he's as dangerous as Biden. And people really freaked out at me over that. And I was just why would you vote for somebody who's going to take away all of your rights and has promised to take away all your rights? You're destroying sex-based rights. Sorry, not all of your rights. I shouldn't say that. But take away sex-based rights. You're a woman. And you're a woman who's very concerned about this, and you just can't break out of this Trump thing. And it's not like I'm saying, oh, you should vote for Trump, but why are you voting for this person who's working against you openly?
Well, the media did a great job of highlighting any negative issue about Trump and constantly beating it into people's brains that he's a misogynist, that he's a racist, that he's a this, that he's a that, and exaggerating any flaws that he may have had ad nauseum, any slurs in his speech, any things that he fucked up or gigantic, huge red flags. But then you see it the opposite with Biden. They're letting Biden slide. Watching Don Lemon interview him and watching him babble in these weird, nonsensical, circular sentences that don't mean anything, just talking.
Yeah.
Just making noises with his face. Like, what did you just say? He's not saying anything. And Don Lemon is there pretending that it makes sense. Like, if he was talking to Trump, he would for sure say, oh my God, this man is not fit for office. This man is mentally impaired. There's something wrong here. We have a huge issue. It's a national security issue. We need to deal with this right now. But the fact that they don't look at Biden the same way they would look at Trump in terms of judging him by his actual speech and actions. There's a little bit of that going on right now because of Afghanistan. And what's interesting is Michael Malice actually pointed this out, that I think he was being interviewed by George Stephanopoulos. Is that who it was?
I don't know about this interview.
Anyway, they made him orange.
Really?
They used something where either that or he got a fake tan. Either he got a fake tan or they use the same sort of color correction and filters that they would use with Trump. But Biden, in his most latest interview, looks fucking orange all of a sudden. He used to look like this translucent, sort of jellyfish-skinned, dying man, and now he's got Trump skin.
Weird.
Let's see if you can find that video. Because it's fucking odd. And Malice pointed out, Malice is like, I think they're doing that to make people think of Trump because they're throwing him under the bus now.
Yeah.
They're throwing him under the bus on CNN. They're throwing him under the bus on mainstream media.
This is all Biden's fault. I mean, I think like the knee jerking stuff around Trump versus Biden, I think is so representative of how, progressives engage with all politics. Like, it's all not thinking and knee jerking. It's all like, this is we all.
You got it?
Have it? Like, it's all we support BLM. We support trans people. We hate Trump. Anyone who has anything critical to say about these movements is a white supremacist or a bigot or a transphobe. And nobody's thinking.
Look at this.
Oh, what a nice tan.
How crazy is that? Biden dismisses Afghans falling out of planes by saying it was 4 or 5 days ago.
Yeah, totally.
Look at what they're doing.
How strange.
So
pictures. We've seen those hundreds of people packed into a C-17. We've seen Afghans falling.
That was 4 days ago, 5 days ago.
What did you think when you first saw those pictures? But we've all seen the pictures.
What does that mean? He's like, it's like when someone sends you a meme, like, bro, I saw it last week. That's what he's saying about people falling out of fucking planes.
Yeah, he's like, didn't you see that on Instagram? Like, I saw that on Instagram.
He's like,
also.
it was 4 days ago. Like, what does that mean? Is that bad? Is it nothing because it's 4 days ago?
Yeah,
that was during
we all
the Vietnam
saw that
era.
already. Yeah,
that was during the Korean War. Why are you bringing that up?
It was pretty
4 days
upsetting.
ago.
Pretty big deal.
He's so dead.
Yeah.
He's so cognitively impaired. Like, it's so disturbing to watch. And zero faith as a leader. No one has faith in him to make good decisions.
No,
they
of course
lie
not.
and they pretend they do. But no one looks at him and go, he's fucking nailing it. The guy's got it. Like when Obama was in office, when Obama would speak, you would go, that guy is fucking smart. Like,
Yeah.
that guy's cool, calm, and collected. He's a
I
statesman.
loved Obama. I mean, I know that he's not perfect on policy,
Yeah.
but he's obviously a very intelligent, competent man, quite charming, quite funny.
Yes.
That sold me.
Agreed.
Like, these things.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And a perfect representative of the United States in terms of like
Totally.
the way he speaks. He's so eloquent.
He's so
educated.
respectable. He's so classy.
Yes.
Like,
Never lost his shit.
great taste in music.
Yeah. He's like, I think the policy thing, and I think in terms of like enforcing foreign policy in particular, I think we have an illusion of how much control they actually have. I think the deep state, the idea of the deep state is real. There's people that are in politics that they're in office and government that never leave. The people
Well,
that are
how
involved
would somebody like Biden end up in power? Like, what a useless person to put in power.
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly. Oh, and also it showed how hypocritically
it's like,
people are. When,
let's just stick him there.
it
Like,
showed how
perfect.
hypocritically people are when they talk to how critical people are when it comes to sexual assault. Because like all the allegations against Biden, they were like, well, I don't believe her. But what happened to all that believe all women shit? Like where was all that? Like that
Well,
was
that's a really
narrative.
stupid mantra to begin with.
It is.
But I mean, like, obviously, you shouldn't just believe all women, no matter what. I mean, again, this is another one of those things. Like I said, like I've sort of been like moving away from feminism, and it doesn't mean that I'm not a feminist anymore. Like, I've actually been, ironically, like under attack by the radical feminists lately.
Who are the radical feminists? Like, what? You don't have to name names, but like, I know Christina Hoff Sommers gets attacked by them.
I mean, they identify themselves as radical feminists. They're people, I guess their ideology generally would be like, they would be anti-pornography, they would be anti-prostitution, they would be anti the gender identity stuff.
That's you. Wait a minute. You just outed yourself, lady.
Okay, but there's more. It's like, I don't believe.
But you just listed off the three things that you like.
I don't want to upend the system.
Oh,
I don't believe
okay.
men are responsible for all of the bad things that happen in the world.
Right.
They're going to get mad at me again because now they're going to act like I'm stereotyping. But I mean, the answer is men. Men are the problem.
Right.
Men are responsible for all of the, violence, all the bad things that happen in this world. Men have all this power. Men are always in a position of privilege. Women are always the victims. Like, I don't believe that at all. I don't believe that women are like not responsible for their choices in life. I think that women should, take responsibility for the choices that they make. And I feel like radical feminism, I mean, maybe, feminism in general does this. It's probably not just radical feminism, goes in too hard on this, like, women are perpetual victims and they can't be blamed even for bad behavior. So even if a woman acts like shitty or acts like a bitch or says something horrible, it's like, well, the patriarchy, like she's suffered under patriarchy her whole life. She's been abused. Like this lack of accountability. Women don't have to be accountable for the things that they do. And, that's a good question. Like, who are the radical feminists? I mean, they're women who identify themselves as radical feminists, and they've turned against me in part because I've been trying to have more nuanced conversations, even about pornography. Like, yes, I'm anti-pornography, but I also recently sort of tried to say, like, okay, men use pornography. Most men use pornography. This is a reality. All of those men aren't bad men. I can't say in good faith that all men who use pornography are like misogynists or hate women, and that's what these women would say. Any man who consumes pornography hates women, or is a misogynist. I'm like, okay, I mean, that's like a lot of men, and it's a lot of men that I know, that's like my boyfriends or like my male friends. And I understand the train of thought because they're thinking of the porn industry as this hugely unethical, again, exploitative, abusive industry. And they're saying if a man's making a choice to consume this and he knows that she doesn't want to be there, he knows that she's being hurt or he knows that she's being abused, then obviously he doesn't care about women. Obviously he's a misogynist. And I'm like, but that's not always the case. And he doesn't know that. That's not what men are thinking about for the most part when they're, watching pornography. They're not thinking, oh, this woman is being abused. Like, and we have to be able to have real, honest, empathetic, compassionate conversations with one another. And it doesn't fucking help. Like, if you want to stop men from using pornography, do you think screaming, you're a misogynist is going to stop him? Like, you're a horrible person. Like, you hate women. He's going to be like, oh, I do hate women. I should stop. Like,
yeah.
And they got really angry at me because they accused me essentially of coddling men. They also called me a ball palmer.
A ball palmer? What is a ball palmer? You're palming balls?
I mean,
You're cradling balls?
And I was like, well.
What does that mean?
It means.
Have you ever heard of that, Jen? A
like,
ball palmer?
Not in an ironic context, I don't think. But.
Like, they're accusing me of being like, so like enamored with men that I can't think straight, basically, that I'm coddling men. But I found the term very amusing because they called me a ball palmer, and I was like, well, I mean, I'm like a heterosexual woman, so.
Is there something that works like that, the opposite for men? Is there like a breast cradler?
Oh, like it would be like pussy whipped, probably. Right?
Yeah, I guess so.
But that's not even the same thing.
But that's like a guy who's like got a girl who's just got him like googly.
That's called simp, I think. It's
okay.
Simp.
Yeah. Maybe that's better.
Right.
I just looked up ball palmer and it doesn't come up.
It's just a radical feminist insult for women who aren't like
Paul Palmer.
I know. I really like it. Like I've been using it a lot. I found it very funny. But like it's essentially like if I'm not gonna vilify men, like if I'm not like hard ass enough, then I'm a ball palmer.
Got it.
I'm too soft on men, basically.
I got it.
And I'm like, I'm just trying to talk to people. Like I'm genuinely like I want to understand people, even if they're people I don't agree with. Like God forbid. And like if you genuinely want to change people's minds, then you have to treat them as humans and be fair. And I think you do have to try to understand them. Not if they're like horrible, like murderers or they're sociopaths or whatever, but just regular people. I mean, you think that everybody in the world has been exposed to like a radical feminist analysis of pornography? Like, no one has, and nobody cares. You have to have conversations with people.
Has anyone ever successfully argued for pornography? Have you ever heard anybody like making good arguments, whether it's a woman or a man, like for pornography?
I mean, I think that people would argue that men need a sexual outlet. So I just interviewed on my YouTube channel a woman who's a stripper, and she's actually anti-porn, but she's worked as a stripper for like 20 years, and she's a feminist, and she was like, the reality is that like a lot of men don't have access to sex, or they don't have access to as much sex as they want to have, or they don't have access to the kind of sex they want to have. And like, what do we do with men? What do we do with those men? How do we deal with this? And the radical feminist would say, too bad, fuck them, like go masturbate in your corner. Right? Like, no, but really, like, it's like, like,
right. It's not my problem.
Yeah. And like, and I think on a certain level, women really don't totally understand the male libido and male sexuality. Like, I assume it's probably different than how women feel or think about sex.
It's one of the things that trans men always say. They have a different understanding. Once they start taking testosterone, they're like, oh, God.
Yeah.
Like, no wonder why men are so pushy.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say, like, perverted.
Perverted, too. That, too. Just horny.
Yeah, like, I think it's more kind of intense.
Well, I mean, males in general, because of just biological history, we have more of a history of aggression, more of a history of, also, like, the competition for mating. Like, it's the competition amongst males is very aggressive. Like, if one man finds, a friend of mine was just telling me the story about this woman who's dating one guy, and then she broke up with this guy and then dated a guy that worked with him, and it became this fucking colossal catastrophe, and these guys had a fist fight at work, and I was like, holy shit. But that's like standard male breeding behavior amongst wolves, amongst gorillas, amongst like all sorts of different male animals.
Like, this is mine, or like it's a threat to my masculinity?
I think it's a threat to their hierarchy, their position in the social food chain, the idea that, that now they don't get to breed with this female, but now this other male gets to breed with this female, whether it's a gorilla or a male or a wolf or whatever. Yeah. And then there's like, fuck him, and then there's this weird sort of natural built-in shit. And with beta males, it's like, reputation destruction. They'll talk shit about you behind your back and, and mail things to your ex-girlfriends and, get crazy in that way. But there's a weird sort of aggression thing that's involved with testosterone and dating. It's a weird, it's an undeniable aspect of some parts of male behavior.
Yeah, I mean, men are obviously super competitive in that way. I mean, I've had that experience, like with men that I've broken up with, and there's no thing, and like we're friends, and it's been a long time, and they get super like competitive and weird when I start dating someone else, and it's like, man, you're dating somebody else, like you don't want me, like we're not this, like it's not that you want me, it's that it's like, oh, somebody, it's like
men are supposed to, and they should figure out a way to manage that. But I think we need to recognize that there's some sort of weird inherent programming in human beings that's biological, that is completely about passing on your DNA, and that is ingrained in your cells in some strange way that manifests itself in relationships in really gross and horrible ways. And there's no management skills that are taught to men. There's no mitigation skills in terms of like strategies of releasing this kind of aggressive energy, working out, going to the gym, maybe jerking off before you call your girlfriend and say you're sorry, like that kind of stuff. Like there's so many, or your ex-girlfriend rather, there's so many weird things that are involved with being a biological human being, whether it's female or male.
And so yeah, exactly. And so telling men to just suppress it is like the least helpful thing ever. Like it's like, oh, you feel this way? Like, too bad, fuck you, fuck off, like you're bad, you're pathetic. Like it's like you're right.
Yeah.
Like, and men aren't offered, and boys especially, they're not offered alternatives. They're not offered like healthy outlets. Again, like sports or martial arts or
I think
whatever.
more importantly, they're not offered an understanding of a female's perspective either. Like that's a real big. They think about what they want, especially when people are young, right? When you're young and your frontal lobe hasn't developed, you're thinking about what you want. You're not thinking about what the other person wants. And I think from an early age, it would be great if we had a better understanding, like a real honest understanding of how the other side thinks.
Yes, exactly. And I feel like that was the conversation that I was trying to open up. And, my audience includes, primarily like a lot of, there's men in my audience too, but obviously tons and tons of feminists and tons of radical feminists. And I'm saying like, we don't understand each other, and we have to try to understand each other and be realistic about what's going on. And we live in a world where boys are growing up on pornography, and this is how they're learning about sex, and this is how they're learning about women, and it's totally normalized. There's nobody saying like, oh, maybe this might not be the best thing for you to be jerking off to, and you're like rewiring your brain.
Right.
So this is the thing that turns you on, and this thing is like, I don't know, unhealthy or harmful or violent or whatever. Like, and people just want to shut it down, or they don't want to talk about it, or they just want to, shut it up. Like, the people who don't really feel concerned about porn will more likely be like, oh, it's just sex. It's just a fantasy. Yada,
I think
yada, yada.
also we have to take into consideration the way girls' brains are being rewired, because they're looking at that in terms of what the expectations on them are.
Yeah, totally.
Like I read this study, and it was kind of a fucked up study, because it was like a study about how kids are having much more anal sex now than ever before.
Yeah.
And part of me was like, what kind of scientist is like, what do you want to study? I want to study kids butt fucking.
How many teenagers are having anal sex?
It's
Let's
like,
poll.
hey, I want to talk to that fucking scientist and make sure they're on the up and up. But the reality is that seeing those images, like any child that has access to a phone, your little perverted friends are going to say, have you Googled this yet? Have you seen that? Like, most parents don't have restrictions on their kids' phones. So if you give a boy a phone, you're basically saying, hey, little fella, go watch people fuck. Because go watch violence and go watch people fuck. Go watch gunshot videos and car
find
accidents.
like the most like deranged shit that you can find.
Yes,
your brain's developing. This is
what
perfect.
they're doing.
Look at this.
I think the expectations on girls is another thing that should be studied about that too, because if you're watching like grown adults that enjoy participating in kinky shit, that's a grown adult that's been through the ringer, right? They've been through a lot of things in their life, and then they have 2 shots of this wacky shit that you like, and they're like, go ahead, put it in my ass.
This is the problem. The problem is like they're doing 2 shots of Ricea and they're like, yeah, put it anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. They're getting crazy. And then, some high school girl sees that and like, is that what we're supposed to do? Is that what we do? Like, do we have to say we like that so that people like us?
Yes. And this is like a huge problem, and it makes me really upset. Like, I feel really bad for girls who are growing up in this world.
Right around the time we started today, this is kind of like the news of the day online. I'm seeing OnlyFans has announced they're going to ban sexually explicit videos.
Oh,
what?
Okay.
I thought that was their whole business model.
That's what everyone's been discussing. In the article, if you read into it, it does say what they're trying to get rid of is like bestiality and rape and all sorts, like everything that would be bad. But it's all getting encompassed in this blanket statement.
I mean, they
Do you
can't.
think this has anything to do with Rachel Dolezal open up her
I think that's
OnlyFans?
a very
Is
very
that
bad
real?
timing
Did that
for her.
happen? No.
He sent it to me.
I can't believe it took her so long, honestly.
And one of the things is like cooking and exercise, but also feet.
Yeah, she did
Look
mention
at
that.
Race Faker. Look how the Daily Beast titled
Oh
it.
my God.
Race Faker. Rachel Dolezal's new side hustle. OnlyFans.
I mean,
it's
I'm
just poor
not
timing on
saying
her
that I
side.
support it, but it's like, I mean, she obviously lost access to almost any income. So I'm saying I'm surprised it took her this long.
Look what she used to look like. How bizarre. Like with her fake tan.
I feel bad for her.
Do you
It's a
feel
sad story.
like what she does is any different than someone who identifies with a different gender?
Sex. So gender and
okay.
sex are not the same thing. Gender to me, gender means masculinity or femininity. So that's like referring to the roles that are assigned to people based on their sex. So like those stereotypes where it's like,
So a feminine male, his gender is female? Like a guy who's in a gay relationship,
No.
but he's the wife?
I don't think that gender is a very useful concept.
Okay, let's
So-
just say sex.
Okay,
Do you think,
great.
but just to get away from that, do you think that what she does or did, when she says she identifies with African Americans, that's
No,
like
I
the
don't
culture
think
that
it's the
she's.
same thing. And I mean, this is a very complex conversation, but
Is there racial dysphoria? Like there's gender dysphoria?
I mean, maybe those people are crazy too. Like, but I don't. You know, like, did you watch the documentary about her?
No.
Okay, it's good.
I can't. I can barely get through this HBO documentary on QAnon.
Oh, okay. I watched that one.
Have you seen that?
Yeah.
I'm 4 episodes in. It keeps going back and forth. Now I was for a moment I was thinking it was Steve Bannon. But now I'm back to that fucking kid.
Well, keep at it. It's a good. Best of luck. It's a good documentary. Like it's sympathetic and deservedly so. Like she had a really hard childhood. Like there was abuse, and like I think she just was seeking. And she found an identity, and she also she was doing good in that community.
She was the head of the NAACP.
Like, no, it's not good to say that you're black when you're white, but I mean, she didn't actually do any harm by doing that. Right. And I do think that, I mean, race is not as black and white as sex is, right? Like,
right,
it's
because
very
we all
clear
come
who's
from
male.
Africa. Like all human beings.
Yeah, and
right?
we're all like a crazy mix. And also there isn't actually, I mean, there, in Canada and in the United States, people act like there's this binary, like white versus black. And, whites are in power and black people don't have power, and racism always goes in one direction. And that's total bullshit. Like, I mean, the history of the world shows otherwise.
Right.
But yeah, it's not a binary thing. It's not black and white. She wasn't trying to, I don't think she was going out of her way to sort of like usurp a position that should have been for a black person. I think she was looking for community, and she was looking for purpose and trying to help. And she was troubled. Like she probably has some like mental illness issues.
Well, she changed her name. Do you know what her new name is?
No.
You need to read
Is it Colin?
No. Colin would be more realistic.
Is it
What
Mark?
is her new name? It's like some like African priest name. It's the most ridiculous name.
Okay.
What
So
is
she's a little bit crazy, but
You need to see it.
I feel bad for her.
But she did it publicly. She wanted to let everyone know. Like it was
She's
like a
officially
thing. Officially she had,
African.
yeah, I mean she's all in with this transracial thing. Like she's not abandoning it. She's changed her name. What is her name?
This was a while ago, but
Oh, it was 4 days ago. 4 days ago. When people were falling out of planes. Let
That
it
was
go.
4 days ago.
It's all four days ago.
Hanging on the tires. 4 days ago.
It was over
They're
4
dead
days
by
ago.
now. Sorry, that was
no
crude.
big deal. No big deal. Look at my orange skin.
Yeah.
They made him orange. Did you notice that? I think they're fucking with him. I think he's on his way out. I really do. I think Michael Malice is correct.
Who will they put
Here,
in now?
How about this new name? Nkechi Amari Diallo. Her new full name, Nkechi Amari Diallo.
Gift
It's a
of
West
God.
African name that means gift of God.
Oh no.
Yeah, see?
I mean, poor lady.
Now I'm not on her team anymore. Now I'm not on her
She's
side.
okay, but she's mentally ill. She's troubled.
Sure. But you like that. That's okay.
I don't like it. No.
But you're
I
okay.
feel bad for her.
Right. Do you feel bad for trans
Okay,
people?
she doesn't have. Sure, yes. If you're suffering because you hate your body, you feel so uncomfortable in your skin.
Right.
Of course, I feel bad for you.
But do you think that should be okay? Is it okay to be transracial?
No, but I feel bad for her. She's not a threat to anybody. Like, there's a difference when you're changing legislation and policy and it's
Right.
having like a really, really serious negative impact on half of the population versus one lady who's had a sad life and, she's just
point.
trying to...
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
So
it's different.
If it was like a major phenomenon and like people were losing access to like funding or jobs or whatever because, white people were posing as black and getting that funding instead or getting these positions instead or whatever it is, like
that's reasonable.
And really, and again, like, this thing where like these men who are entering into women's spaces really are a threat to women, like in a physical sense and as well as in a political sense. I don't think that that's, again, such a black and white issue when it comes to race.
Has being kicked off of Twitter made you more free in terms of your ability to discuss things? Because you don't get the same sort of like instantaneous feedback on your ideas that you do with Twitter, which I think is in some ways positive, like the discussions that you can have with people, but in a lot of ways negative, because a lot of what you're dealing with is just people complaining and criticizing and insulting and being like really shitty in a way that people generally don't do in real life. They only do when they're hiding behind a screen name and only using text and not in front of the person, so they don't get social cues and they don't get to see the impact that their insulting statements have on this person's personality. They're doing it like they're throwing bombs over a fence and they can't see what's on the other side.
I mean, I had a lot of support on Twitter, to be honest. And I think that was part of why they got rid of me. Like, I think people were feeling emboldened by what I was saying and I was getting a lot of support. And they were like, I don't know who they is. I don't know if it's like, trans activists who had connections at Twitter or who worked there or, whether it was the head of safety who's, again, I can't say her name. If they were like, oh, she's getting too much traction and this is starting to like legitimize, like I was talking about this stuff in a rational way.
Right.
Like I wasn't being an asshole.
Is that part of the problem?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like I think that these questions that I was asking were legitimate and making people question this ideology. And I think they didn't want that, whoever they is. But like, so I wasn't having a bad time on Twitter. Like I got a lot of shit, but like, who cares? Like, I feel like it's so blown out of proportion, this idea that people are being devastated by online harassment. I think that cancel culture can be really awful and ruin people's lives, but being called names on Twitter, I mean, who cares? Just block them. Like, somebody says something mean to you, somebody insults your appearance, even somebody threatens you. Like, it's not as big a deal as people pretend it is. I mean, I've been threatened more than, like, most people in the world on the internet, and I don't really care that much. And part of it is probably that I'm used to it. Part of it is that I think I just have a thick skin. Like, as a person, I'm not sensitive in that way. Like, I'm not super upset by what people
You're
say
not
to me.
fragile.
Yeah. Yes, I'm not fragile. Thank you.
Did you...
But so no, like it doesn't help. It's been worse. The only thing that's been good about being kicked off of Twitter is that I can have these conversations and that, you know what, like it actually connected me with a whole bunch of people that I never would have connected with otherwise. Like people who are right wing, like people who I wrote off as like a committed leftist and feminist, like people like Ben Shapiro called me after I got kicked off of Twitter and he was like, can I support you? And I think he's a really nice guy and I never would have talked to him or considered that, like he's not just like an enemy to my cause. And it really shook up my ideas about politics and about this like left-right binary, and made me very passionate about free speech. And I wasn't before, and I feel bad about that. And I've apologized about that publicly. Like, I never really bothered. I was never openly against free speech, but I never really bothered standing up for free speech. I never thought about it much. In Canada, we really don't. And now I've realized it's unfortunate that something like that would have to happen to me in order for me to realize how important it is and to stand up. But it did. And it made me realize how awful and destructive and dangerous these corporate monopolies are, these big tech monopolies are. And they're really fucking dangerous, and a lot of people don't realize.
I agree. And I think free speech is almost everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only way we ever discuss things and figure out what's right and what's wrong. And you got to let it sort itself out. And if you don't, if you just put the walls up and say you're kicked out of the kingdom, like, wow. Like, especially, we're not talking about a small scale thing. We're talking about a massive multi-billion member thing. We're talking about what essentially should be a utility. It should be a public right to use these things to communicate. And it's one thing if you're doxing people or harassing people, but if you're just discussing ideas, you should be able to discuss ideas openly and without fear of repercussion from the administrators who are essentially just appealing to one particular ideology and not supporting the other ideology at all. It's fucking dangerous, and it's unprecedented because there's never been a thing like this before. And the people that, their side is supported by these conversations and these people getting censored, they're like, well, it's a private company. They can do what they like.
Yeah.
It's a nonsense horseshit argument. This is not a private company. This is essentially just like a utility. It's massive. There's way too many people, and the impact that it has is so huge. Here's how fucking ridiculous they are. The Taliban's on Twitter, and you're not.
Me.
And you're not.
I
The
mean, to be fair, I am
Taliban.
worse than the Taliban.
Do you know how crazy that is? The Taliban's on Twitter. But little old you.
Like, she said him.
Yeah. Little old you.
I just think that, and the private company argument is coming from leftists or progressives, and it's like, oh, suddenly you're a fan of corporate monopolies?
Yeah.
Like,
hilarious.
and what a joke. Like, please, you cannot in good faith pretend that this is just like a business. Like, this is where conversations happen. This is where journalism happens. Like, I'm a journalist. I don't actually produce very much journalism these days, but like, I'm a writer. Like, I'm trained in journalism. Like, this is my job. Like, it's very difficult to participate in public conversations and to do your job if you're like a media producer or a journalist without access to social media platforms. Well, impossible now.
Yeah. But you still have Instagram, right?
But
do you have Facebook as well?
Yeah, but so I was really just using Twitter before I got kicked off because I honestly don't love social media, to be honest, and I really don't like Facebook at all. So I didn't have a public Facebook account. I didn't have a public Instagram account. I didn't have a YouTube channel. And then I got kicked off and I was like, oh, shit. Like,
put all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah. So I was shocked. I cried. I'm not joking.
Wait, really?
I cried when I got kicked off of Twitter. Well, I was scared. Like, I was like, how am I going to work? Like, how am I going to make an income? And I just didn't think that would happen. Like, again, I didn't think I was doing anything offensive. I wasn't doing anything offensive, but I didn't anticipate it. Like, I remember somebody asking me, John Kay, who's a Canadian journalist, and he's like, well, you must have seen it coming. And I was like, no, I was totally shocked. And I was really upset, and I was scared. And
they've ramped up their censorship to the point where Sean Baker, who is an advocate of the carnivore diet, he's a guy who he's like this very fit guy who's I think he's 55, and posts these videos. He's an orthopedic surgeon, I believe. He's some sort of physician. He's an actual medical doctor, and he believes that meat is the healthiest thing for people to eat. It's a very controversial opinion. Some people agree, some people disagree. There's more than one doctor that agrees with him, though. Mm-hmm. But meanwhile, he just got kicked off Twitter for this.
Ridiculous.
Like, they banned him.
They banned him from Twitter?
He's banned forever from Twitter. They don't offer any explanation.
Crazy.
And most of his posts are just about meat, about eating meat, about how healthy meat is for you. And obviously someone at Twitter finds that, whether it's a political perspective, a social perspective, whatever it is, they think that it's bad for the environment of the world. They kicked him off Twitter.
So, I mean, you've talked to these guys. Like, what do you think? Like, you had Jack Dorsey here and, oh my God,
Vidya.
please let me learn how to say her name. Vidya?
Yeah.
And, like, are they lying? Like, I felt when they talked about me here, I thought they were lying about me. I was like, you know, Jack Dorsey might be out to lunch and may not have known what happened to me, but I think she knows and she lied. Like, you know, they essentially implied that I had been harassing people.
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, you know, there's a long history of her, like, harassing trans people. It's like, yeah, that's what I do with my time. I harass trans people on the internet. Like,
Yeah.
you know.
They have to justify their censorship
Like,
position.
is it just sort of when people like him are being banned for advocating an all-meat diet or whatever he's doing, is he advocating an all-meat diet? Yeah. I mean, I've heard of this before. And I know people I guess Jordan Peterson was doing that for a bit, right? Like, is it politically motivated, or is just like you got reported one too many times, or they're like, oh, this is a not progressive position, so we've got to get rid of him?
I think that's it.
Yeah.
I think that's it. He's aggressive in his evangelism for it, and I think they just decided at one point in time that they just were going to get rid of him, and now he's banned permanently. It's fucking wild. Are you suing them? Are you suing Twitter?
Well, we did, but we lost.
Oh.
And we lost because of Section 230, which is supposed to protect platforms from being, you know, essentially held accountable for what people post on their platform. So, like, I have a website. So if somebody posted a comment...
Tell people your website.
Feminist Current.
Feministcurrent.com or .ca?
.com.
Okay.
And then I also have a podcast and a YouTube show. It's called The Same Drugs with Meghan Murphy. I'm Meghan Murphy.
The Same Drugs?
It's like a shout out to Chance the Rapper, and who I'm a big fan of his, and I really like that song. But also sort of, I felt like there was some kind of like zeitgeist thing where everybody was changing their minds in the same direction at the same time, starting to like question, or not everyone obviously, but question orthodoxies and the kind of interviews.
The Same Drugs with Meghan
That's
Murphy.
me. Isn't that
Conversations outside the algorithm.
Thanks,
Ooh.
Jamie.
And you got your hoops on and everything. Look at you.
Yeah.
That's
That's
you.
me. That's what I look
you.
like.
That is you. You're here right now. I'm looking at you. I've watched many of your YouTube videos, and
thank you.
It's very interesting. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you.
Okay.
You know, when you're portrayed one way as being this like hostile, disagreeable, unreasonable person who's harassing people, and then I actually see you talk, and it's frustrating. I hate that. I hate when people are misrepresented. It drives me nuts. It's just it's rude, and it's diametrically opposed to free speech, right? Free speech is supposed to be about a person expressing themselves, and I want to know what they really think, and then I want to know, is there a counter to that, and who's right, and let these people talk. But when you misrepresent someone and you taint them and you change who they are, you've already poisoned the argument, right? And I felt I didn't know about you until I found out you got kicked off of Twitter, and then someone let me know that you got kicked off of Twitter for saying a woman isn't a man, and I was like, that is the most fucking ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And then I heard that you know, I tried to do some research on you, found out you're a feminist, and I'm like, but she's right. Like, you're talking about biology. Like, what do you say? Like, what are you allowed to say, and why are you not allowed to say that? Like, what are you trying to protect by stopping this from being said? And why can't we have that said and then have someone counter that in a way that's intelligent and robust, and like, let's have a debate and a discussion and see if there's common ground that we can reach, if there's some sort of a reasonable, amicable sort of a workaround for this. But instead, banner.
Yeah, and this has been one of my biggest frustrations, is that no one will debate me. So these people who say that I'm hateful or bigoted and completely the misrepresentation thing completely drives me crazy. I can't lie. I don't think I'm ever going to get over it. Not when I'm misrepresented, not when other people are. Like you were talking about these like Spotify employees who are trying to like get rid of you, which is of course ridiculous. But it's like, do you listen to this show? Like, how could they say, like, how can they, like, I don't actually believe they listen to your show. Just like I don't believe that the people who misrepresent me are actually listening to what I'm saying, because I don't know how they could listen to what I'm saying and then say those things about me.
They don't care.
Yeah.
It's not, they don't care to be truthful. They care, they have an ideology. They have there's very clear borders of what's allowed and what's not allowed. You stepped outside that border by saying a woman is never a man. And they're like, that bitch. You know,
yeah,
like you
yeah, how dare
clutch
she?
those pearls. you fucked up their little narrative. But it's the wrong way to approach any debatable issue. And this is clearly a confusing, nuanced, debatable issue.
Well, and so this booze is really good, by the way. I'm really
That's
enjoying
the real
it.
shit.
I'm trying to like
American whiskey,
It's
still
so good.
Austin. Right
but
here,
I'm like,
baby.
okay, water, whiskey,
Yeah,
water,
fuck all
whiskey.
this nonsense. You're drinking paint thinner.
I mean, more than one thing can be good.
This is good if the apocalypse happens, because I think you could use it as gas.
Okay, well, great. The apocalypse is
I don't
coming,
even
so you're welcome for
smell
your
in that
gift.
bottle when I pushed it. It wafted up into me. I'll never drink that again. Ooh.
That's fine. I'll
Thank you for that gift. Thank you very much. Very kind
You're
of you.
welcome. Okay, so what? Like nobody, like people. These people won't debate me. Like people have tried to set up debates between me, like the monk
Who would
debates,
be the person
and
to
nobody
debate on the
will
other
do
side?
it.
Who would be the person to debate you on the other side?
Well, it could. I mean, anybody who advocates gender identity ideology, right? Like
Right.
anybody who thinks that the concept of changing sex is legitimate. Anyone really who thinks the concept of like a transgender in general, I would be interested in debating, because I don't think that is a rational concept. And nobody will do it. Like, and to me, that speaks volumes about their position, because I would debate anybody. You know, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I've been wrong lots of times before. I've changed my mind about lots of things. I don't find it embarrassing. I don't, like I'm happy to
Good for you.
change my mind. If
Good
I
for
change
you.
my mind, I'm like, great, I learned something new.
Yeah.
Other people don't like it when I change my mind.
Yeah,
But
that's okay.
they're like, we thought you were our, keep saying the same
Right.
thing over and over and over again, because otherwise we're going to have to
Yeah.
rethink what we're saying over
She's
and
a
over again.
flip-flopper.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
but-
you can't be married to your ideas. You just can't, because then you will be literally attached to the first ideas you've ever had. The whole idea about being a human being is you learn and you grow and you see things from different perspectives. And it's one of the most incredibly beneficial things that I've gotten out of this podcast is that I get to talk to so many different people.
Totally.
With so many different backgrounds, so many different perspectives, and it's informed me and changed my perspective on things, and it's made me a much more nuanced thinker, because I get to see things from other people's eyes. I get to listen to their arguments. I get to hear their impassioned pleas and to go, oh, that makes sense. Okay, I see why you say that. Okay, I didn't think about it that way. I love that.
Totally.
I love when someone says something, I go, oh, okay, all right. I mean, it's an ego battle, right? Because you don't want to be wrong. But you got to know when the idea that you were attached to is a bad idea. Don't be married to them. You are not your ideas. You're a thinking organism. And when ideas come across you, they should be carefully examined. And any of them that are forcing you to adopt them without any scrutiny, those are dangerous. These dogmatic positions that you see where people rigidly adhere to ideologies, it's one of the reasons why free speech is so fucking important, because those things are how you lead to dictatorship. Those things are how you lead to communism. Those things are how you lead to a literal inability to debate, discuss, and examine things, because some things cannot be discussed. The thing that cannot be said, the ideas that cannot be examined, those are bullshit. It's terrible.
When you can't count yourself as like an intelligent person or a critical thinker, if you won't do that, if you
Right.
won't challenge your own ideas or let your ideas be challenged, and your idea is not valid.
Right.
Like if you're not going to challenge your own ideas, and if you're not going to allow others to challenge your ideas, then your idea is not valid. Like it has to be, put to the test, essentially. And it's incredible to me how few people understand that and think that what strength is to just stick doggedly to the thing that you've always said. Like, you've been saying the same thing for 20 years. Like, hopefully you've changed your mind about things since you were 20 years old and now you're 40. I mean, that's what growth and wisdom is.
Sure.
I mean, how sad and pathetic if you still believe all the same things you did in your 20s.
Yeah.
But they see it as a form of weakness, I guess, or, again, like I know that I'm being repetitive, but it's like I came from that place where, I did post like hyperbolic statements on Twitter, and I was kind of black and white in my thinking in terms of certain issues. And I did think that people who saw things differently were bad or dumb or whatever. And, having nuanced conversations is so much harder, and for whatever reason, so much more controversial, and you get attacked so much more. You do, of course, too, but like I get attacked for having conversations with people, even if I don't agree with them,
Right.
just because I'm having the conversation with them.
Yeah, but you platform them.
Yeah. And people assume that I agree with them because
Right.
I'm having the conversation with them and I'm not being mean to them, or I'm not like, you're a terrible person. I'm like, but they're not a terrible person. We just have different ideas.
The Ben Shapiro example is a good one.
Yeah.
Like Ben's a friend of mine. I like him a lot. I disagree with him on many, many, many things. But I like him. I think he's a very friendly guy. He's a very nice guy. And I like talking to him.
I really like him too, and he's super smart. Like,
Yeah.
of course I don't agree with him on all things. We're very different people.
Yeah.
But I think he's super smart. I think he's super ethical. He's legit. Like, I have so much more respect for somebody who is honest and authentic.
Yes.
And, rational versus somebody who's going to doggedly stick to ideology no matter what, even if they don't believe it, even if they're proven wrong, even if it doesn't make sense, like it's not a coherent argument. Like I don't want that. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in truth. I'm interested in authenticity. And if that makes me, which is what everybody else says, that makes me like right wing or like a ball palmer,
Or a simp.
so be it.
Are you a female
A
simp?
whorephobe.
A whorephobe. That's my favorite. I learned 2 new terms today because of you. Ball palmer and whorephobe.
And you've been introduced to Racia.
Yes. I've learned a lot. All right. One more time, Jamie, put up her show, The Same Drugs.
Thank you.
It's got a cool... Who did that artwork for you? I like that.
My friend Carrie.
Carrie did a good job.
Thanks,
The
Carrie.
Same Drugs with Meghan Murphy. Is this on iTunes and Spotify?
Yeah, it's on all
everything,
that. All the
that stuff.
Yeah.
And you're on Instagram. What's your Instagram?
Megan Emily Murphy.
And Facebook, same.
And Facebook.
Same shit.
Not on Twitter.
All right. Not on Twitter. Ooh, come on,
Fuck
Twitter.
you. Let me
Come
back.
on, Twitter. Let her back.
Let me back.
Let her
Everyone
back, you
wants me
twats.
back.
Yes.
I think now it's just like a contest of like, they're just being stubborn. They're like, nah.
But the concept of like no forgiveness, no redemption ever. It's like, God damn it. Really? For saying a woman is, or
Admit
a man
you made
is
a
not
mistake.
a woman.
Admit
Yeah.
this was a
You
stupid
made a
decision.
mistake. Come on, Jack. Get your shit together.
Jack.
I don't think it's his. I think it's they're honestly. I think they're managing at scale. That's what I think it is. I think there's too many fucking people on that, and it's impossible. And the people that are like pulling the band hammers, there's so many of them. There are
Right.
so many people working over there that are doing that. The idea that there's like one person who reviews thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of human beings that are stepping outside the lines.
Yeah, those quick decisions like bad, good, right, wrong,
Exactly.
right, wrong.
Exactly.
Like,
ban forever.
Yeah.
He promotes steak. Ban him. Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Megan, I enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah,
I
that was
appreciate
fun.
you very much.
Thank you so much.
Let's do it again.
Totally, I would love to.
Thank you very
Okay.
much. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.